In a town forgotten by maps and mercy, where paint peeled from sagging porch pillars and tumbleweeds scraped like restless bones along the street, Ilara Winslow stepped down from the dust-caked stagecoach and told herself that this time she would not run. Hot wind shivered through rusted path, little more than a crossroads caught between high desert plateaus and the saw-toothed silhouette of the Mercer range. Heat rippled above red dirt, warping distant fence posts into wavering ghosts, but Ilara felt only the cold inside her chest. She pulled her duster closer though noon blazed, fingers working the buttons with the muscle memory of someone used to fastening herself against storms no one else could see. Asterisk, I stayed alive. She reminded the accusing voices that still hissed when she tried to sleep. I did what I had to, yet survival had earned her a different brand than death coward. The word rode every mile with her like a burr beneath the saddle, needling, impossible to ignore. Back in Bitter Creek, they said she abandoned her own when the foundry exploded, that she sprinted for the hillside while flames raged and men screamed. They did not know the stink of burning oil, or that her brother's shouts had already ceased. Before she stumbled clear of the collapsing gantry, they saw only smoke curling above twisted rafters and one lone figure running hard in the opposite direction. Running was easier to judge than to understand. She squared her shoulders now, feeling both lighter and heavier in the same breath, an exile approaching the edge of some unseen reckoning. A hand-painted sign above the tilted depot welcomed travelers with chipped letters. Asterisk rusted path, Est, 1854. Quiet hearts grow here. Asterisk. The words tasted like dried petals on her tongue. Quiet hearts? Hers hammered louder each mile she put. Between yesterday and whatever waited past the hills, ma'am. Silas Hooker, the stage driver, tipped his sweat-soaked hat. Sun glared white off the brass trim. What, your trunk set by the boarding house? Miss Finch runs a decent table, though the sheets have seen more summers than sign. Here is fine, Ilara answered. Her voice came rough, canyon-throated from days of holding questions down. I'll carry it. Silas squinted. No shame leaning on help. Case looks heavy, so does history, she nearly said, but she lifted the scuffed leather anyway. Muscles in her arms quivered, yet held. Years working ore carts had carved endurance deeper than fear would ever carve surrender. She crossed the street. Boards groaned beneath boots, giving little sighs like tired men. A bored horse at the hitch rail turned one ear, decided she lacked sugar cubes, returned to swatting flies. On the saloon veranda, two locals played checkers beneath a sagging awning. They paused mid-move as she passed, gazes flicking from the stranger's worn valise to the streak of soot no washing had fully erased from her collar. She walked on. Stairs slid between her shoulder blades. She had learned not to flinch, but felt every glance the way a scar feels weather-deep, electric, predictive. Mrs. Dahlia Finch's boarding house leaned against itself like a weary matron. Morning glory vines clung stubbornly to the porch posts, blossoms wilting in the dry heat. Ilara paid for a week with coins saved since Bitter Creek, coins that could have bought a new start anywhere, but anywhere was too big too quick. She needed someplace small enough her breath wouldn't echo. Upstairs, in a town forgotten by maps and mercy, where paint peeled from sagging porch pillars and tumbleweeds scraped like restless bones along the street, Ilara Winslow stepped down from the dust-caked stagecoach and told herself that this time she would not run. Hot wind shivered through rusted path, little more than a crossroads caught between high desert plateaus and the saw-toothed silhouette of the Mercer range. Heat rippled above red dirt, warping distant fence posts into wavering ghosts, but Ilara felt only the cold inside her chest. She pulled her duster closer though noon blazed, fingers working the buttons with the muscle memory of someone used to fastening herself against storms no one else could see. Asterisk, I stayed alive. She reminded the accusing voices that still hissed when she tried to sleep. I did what I had to, Yet survival had earned her a different brand than Death Coward. The word rode every mile with her like a burr beneath the saddle, needling, impossible to ignore. Back in Bitter Creek, they said she abandoned her own when the foundry exploded, that she sprinted for the hillside while flames raged and men screamed. They did not know the stink of burning oil, or that her brother's shouts had already ceased. Before she stumbled clear of the collapsing gantry, they saw only smoke curling above twisted rafters and one lone figure running hard in the opposite direction. Running was easier to judge than to understand. She squared her shoulders now, feeling both lighter and heavier in the same breath, an exile approaching the edge of some unseen reckoning. A hand-painted sign above the tilted depot welcomed travelers with chipped letters. Asterisk rusted path, Est, 1854. Quiet hearts grow here. Asterisk. The words tasted like dried petals on her tongue. Quiet hearts? Hers hammered louder each mile she put. Between yesterday and whatever waited past the hills, ma'am. Silas Hooker, the stage driver, tipped his sweat-soaked hat. Sun glared white off the brass trim. What, your trunk set by the boarding house? Miss Finch runs a decent table, though the sheets have seen more summers than sign. Here is fine, Elara answered. Her voice came rough, canyon-throated from days of holding questions down. I'll carry it. Silas squinted. No shame leaning on help. Case looks heavy, so does history, she nearly said, but she lifted the scuffed leather anyway. Muscles in her arms quivered, yet held. Years working ore carts had carved endurance deeper than fear would ever carve surrender. She crossed the street. Boards groaned beneath boots, giving little sighs like tired men. A bored horse at the hitch rail turned one ear, decided she lacked sugar cubes, returned to swatting flies. On the saloon veranda, two locals played checkers beneath a sagging awning. They paused mid-move as she passed, gazes flicking from the stranger's worn valise to the streak of soot no washing had fully erased from her collar. She walked on. Stairs slid between her shoulder blades. She had learned not to flinch, but felt every glance the way a scar feels weather-deep, electric, predictive. Mrs. Dahlia Finch's boarding house leaned against itself like a weary matron. Morning glory vines clung stubbornly to the porch posts, blossoms wilting in the dry heat. Elara paid for a week with coins saved since Bitter Creek, coins that could have bought a new start anywhere, but anywhere was too big too quick. She needed someplace small enough her breath wouldn't echo. Upstairs, the rented room smelled of lavender sachets fighting long stale tobacco. A chipped pitcher of water waited on the washstand. Elara glimpsed herself in the tarnished mirror. High cheekbones smudged with travel, dark lashes framing eyes the color of unsettled earth. She was 24 years old and looked older. Fear ages you in places eyes cannot reach. She unpinned her hair. Walnut brown waves tumbled free, heavy with dust, falling past shoulders that bore more weight than the trunk downstairs. She rinsed her face, watching brown water swirl, and whispered, "No running." Words steadied her hands. Promises spoken aloud became like nails driven into timber holding. If one dared to hammer hard enough, late afternoon slid into town on a veil of copper light. Elara left her coat to chase some breeze and walked to the mercantile seeking news, though what she truly hunted was silence inside herself. The bell over the door jingled. Glass jars of penny candy caught the sun, throwing pink and amber freckles across shelves of calico and tinned peaches. The proprietor, Mr. Ridley, looked up from tallying accounts. "Help you?" he asked, polite but tight, like a bootlace pulled past comfort. "I'm looking for work," Elara said. Ridley's brow furrowed, hands full at the moment. "Harvest hires folks seasonal come autumn." He glanced at her calloused palms, the burn scar puckering her right wrist, and something like respect tempered the suspicion. "You might ask at Mercer Ranch," he added. "They always need strong backs." A woman stocking shelves nearby snorted. If Alden Mercer talks to a soul afore first frost, I'll eat my own bonnet, she muttered. Ridley hushed her with a look. Alara filed the name away. Alden Mercer, the rancher, folded into the title of her story like a promise. Something in the cadence suggested sturdy ground, a man anchored despite storms. Or perhaps that was hope. Shaping syllables ahead of proof, she purchased soap and a coil of lamp wick, then stepped outside in time to see dust swirling far up the south road. Hoofbeats? No, you learned to read a trail's language when survival counted on hours gained. This dust rose low and wide, many horses moving deliberate, not racing. A procession rather than a chase. Townfolk noticed too. Checker players forgot. They're bored. A mother shooed children indoors. Ridley shut his ledger and latched the door. Alara felt the street inhale collective dread. "Faro boys," muttered a passerby, hurrying. Back early, she caught the name like splintered. Glass. Hooker's stage rumor echoed, a gang running protection across half the basin. Taking grain, taking coin, taking anything unwatched. The thing about gangs, she knew, was they mistook fear for proof of power. Fear bred silence, and silence let brutality pretend to be law. Alara's pulse stuttered. Back in Bitter Creek, she had swallowed silence. Here, her vow not to run tasted thick as iron. She crossed to the alley, pressed against sun-baked brick, and waited. Heat seeped through cotton into bone. She counted the hoofbeats long before the riders appeared. 6, maybe 7 horses. Scarjaw raised his voice. "Mr. Alden Mercer finally leaves the ridge. Must be my lucky day." Mercer halted 10 paces back, swung down in a single fluid motion. Dust rose around his boots, then settled, as if even the dirt respected boundaries. He did not reach for a weapon. Instead, he slipped gloves from long fingers, tucking them calm as a Sunday prayer into his belt. "Afternoon, Caleb," he said. His voice rode low, creaking slightly, like river-worn cedar. Alara recognized the resonance of someone who seldom spoke, but spoke right when he did. Scarjaw Caleb Faro, she realized, took his boot from the broken broom. The boy scuttled backward, scraping knees on gravel. Faro tracked him with eyes bright as a blade. "Folks paid tariff last week." "Mercer, we're only collecting interest." "Interest ain't due," Mercer replied. He looked at Alara then, briefly, and she felt seen, not in the exposed way of other stares, but in a manner that weighed worth and found it enough. Something eased inside her chest despite adrenaline slamming ribs. Caleb's grin twisted. "Since when does a man who fences cattle on lonely acres speak for town commerce?" "Since I bought half your debt markers 3 months back," Mercer answered. "Paperwork filed in Carson City." "I hold claim." Murmurs drifted from doorways, shock, hope, disbelief. Caleb laughed, but the sound thinned. "You telling me if I burn this place, I'm burning your coin?" "You'd be burning your own," Mercer said. "Because debt paid or not, you'll answer to the circuit judge come July. Sooner if you light a match." Caleb's fingers twitched near his holster. Thunderheads piled on the horizon, though no storm had been forecast. You could smell lightning. Before it split sky, the air sharp and wrong, like metal on tongue. Alara shifted, stealing the boy behind her, shepherding him toward the livery door. Caleb's eyes snapped back to her. "Move again, coward girl, and I snap his little twig neck first." The word coward struck like a thrown stone. Her spine locked even as old shame writhed. She forced breath slow. "No running." Mercer's voice sliced the tension. "Let the boy go." Caleb ignored him, circling Alara now, boots crunching spent mesquite pods. She pivoted to keep face toward threat, heart drumming dizzy rhythm. Mercer stayed still, watching, calculating paths invisible to others. Caleb stopped arm's length away. Sunlight caught scar tissue, blanching it pale. "You know why cowards live long?" he asked almost kindly. "Because they know when to kneel." He reached, perhaps to grip her chin, perhaps to shove. Ilara didn't let him decide. She shoved first open palm square into his breastbone. Surprise jerked him back a step. Surprise is brittle, and brittle things break. Gunfire shattered the afternoon. Not Mercer's, not Caleb's. A single rifle. Crack from an unseen window. The shot spat dirt between Pharaoh's boots. Horses reared. Town echoed with screams swallowed fast. Ilara yanked the boy by collar, diving toward the stable door as Caleb whirled. Gun clearing leather, Mercer's voice hard. As rainfall on tin rang, enough, Ilara looked back mid-sprint. Alden Mercer stood centered in the street, right hand poised over revolver that had appeared as if conjured. His stance carved straight lines, boot heels planted, shoulders squared, intention manifest as gravity. Caleb measured him, teeth bared. In something that wasn't quite a grin. "You going to bleed for these folk, Mercer?" he asked. Mercer's answer came quiet but carried, if that's the math. Lightning split the horizon then, jagged and white. Thunder followed like a judge's gavel. Caleb Pharaoh cocked the hammer. In time, not wind, not dust. Time itself seemed to draw one long breath and hang suspended over rusted path. Ilara crouched inside the stable threshold, hay pricking. Knees through denim, the boy's hand clenched round hers. Horses snorted in stalls, sensing menace. She could feel their muscles tense through timber walls. As though all living things attuned to the gun metal hushed at, she peered through widening crack between doors. Sun now bled behind clouds, turning sky bruised purple. Mercer and Caleb stood. Statues 10 paces apart, silhouettes framed by swirling grit. If shots fly, she thought. Asterisk, who else pays? Rookie gunfighters forget bullets wander. They punch through bystanders. Ricochet off signposts. Bury nightmares extra deep. She knew. She had been that bystander once. Her mind scrolled possibilities. Grab the dropped rifle, sprint for Mercer's horse? Set fire to hay and create smoke enough for chaos? Too many ifs, too little time. Yet the worst choice was running. Again, so she stayed kneeling in straw, breath hitching against silence grown cavernous. Caleb's voice floated, a low rasp traveling the breadth of street. "Odds ain't in your favor, rancher." 7 against 1. Ilara's gut chilled. 7. More riders edged forward now, rifles raised, forming ragged horseshoe around Mercer. She saw them clearly, sinew-lean shapes outlined by brewing storm. Men who tasted terror and found it sweet. Mercer still didn't move. Wind flared his coat, revealing holster strapped low, grips worn pale where hand had rested long nights in lonely hills. But he hadn't drawn. Why? Strategy? Mercy? Or something deeper, some vow akin to her own? She watched him lift eyes toward barn where she hid. They met hers through dusk and shadow, held a breath, and in that silent tether an understanding. Sparked, stand fast. Ilara swallowed. Time to swing fear like a hammer instead of shield. She released the boy, whispering, "Stay low. When I shout, run to your mother." His wide eyes glimmered, but he nodded. Thunder rumbled again, nearer. Caleb's patience frayed. "Last chance, Mercer. Pay or crawl." Mercer exhaled, a deliberate letting go of something unsaid. His hand fell from revolver grip. For a heartbeat, Ilara thought he might submit. Instead, he shrugged off his coat, tossed it aside, and rolled his shoulders like a fighter loosening old scars. Dust gusted, swirling the coat fabric into a dark banner flapping across the empty space. The Pharaoh gang followed the distraction, instinctively eyes tracking the flutter. That was the breath Mercer needed. Steel flashed. Twin revolvers materialized, a left-hand draw matching right, fluid as creek water. Ilara heard 2 distinct clicks, the clock winding on fates. Caleb's gun jerked upward. Ilara stood, slammed stable doors wide. Wood crashed, horses screamed. A flurry of wings erupted. Pigeons, startled from rafters, billowed into the street, a storm of beating gray feathers. Gunshots cracked like splitting granite. Chaos exploded. Horses reared, riders cursed, feathers whirled opaque. Smoke from black powder mingled with dust until vision shredded to fragments. Ilara lunged forward, heart hammering, ribs raw, eyes searching for Mercer through shifting veil. She glimpsed him pivot left, revolver barking, right parrying aim of rifleman to his flank. Movement choreographed, minimal, lethal. Caleb fired wild, forced back by fracturing lines of sight. A bullet hissed past Ilara's ear, hot wind singing. Hair, she ducked behind the trough, splinters scoring cheek. Pain bright, grounding. She tasted copper blood or fear, no difference. Another thunder roll boomed overhead, earth trembling in its echo. Sky cracked open, first fat raindrops splotching. Sand, the smell of petrichor burst sweet, electric, a baptism for violence. Ilara risked a look. Feather cloud thinned as pigeons scattered beyond rooftops. She could now see shapes. A rider unseated thrashing in dust. Caleb kneeling, clutching bleeding forearm. Rage boiling often like steam. 2 gang members still mounted, uncertain whether to charge or flee. Mercer stood braced, coat gone, shirt darkening with sweat and maybe blood at one shoulder. Revolvers leveled steady as iron gods rained at gun metal barrels ticking softly. Caleb spat. "You think you've won?" "We'll be back with twice number." Mercer's answer came low. "Then bring twice coffins." Ilara caught the shift in Caleb's stance weight rolling to toes, muscles coiling for one last desperate shot. Instinct screamed across distance. "Move." She sprinted, boot solace slapping mud as rain quickened. Caleb jerked revolver toward her, instead eyes blazing at the meddling stranger. Who started this domino fall? Time snapped. She saw his finger squeeze. A boom thundered, not Caleb's. Lurched, revolver spiraling from limp hand. Blood blossomed across chest. His gaze slid, hazy surprise, first toward Mercer, then toward her. Raindrops streaked scarred cheek crimson. He slumped to knees. Who fired? Mercer still aimed but had not pulled again. She would have seen recoil. One of Pharaoh's own? No, the remaining riders wheeled horses, terror stricken. Fleeing north, leaving leader, kneeling in rising mud. Another crack split the air rifle, this time from rooftop of general store. Ridley lowered barrel, face set like quarry stone. Town had found its spine. Ilara slowed, chest heaving, water plastering hair. She approached Caleb, his breath rattled thin. He lifted eyes, hatred flickering like dying coals. "Coward," he croaked, blood bubbling. "Shoulda run." She knelt, rain-soaking skirts, and answered softly, "Not today." Lightning illuminated Mercer striding toward them. Revolvers holstered now, each step deliberate through sucking clay. He stopped beside Ilara, gaze sweeping over Caleb's collapsed form, then flicking to her rain-slick face, half cut by splinter wound. "You all right?" The words held gravel and gentleness, cedar undercut by twilight breeze. She nodded, throat tight. The boy she'd shielded emerged from stable, mother sprinting to pull him into shaking arms. Town doors opened again, faces timid but awakening. Mercer offered Ilara his coat, though rain flattened shirt to his frame. But she waved it off. "Keep it," she said hoarsely. "We need his wound tied." She motioned to Caleb, though she barely believed her own mercy. Thunder retreated toward distant peaks. Rain eased to mist, drumming softer on tin roofs. Caleb's breaths hiccuped shorter. Ilara pressed cloth to ruin in his chest. He glared through dimming eyes. "Hate you," he whispered. "I'm done running from hate," she said. Caleb's gaze slid skyward, lashes beaded. Breath stilled. Night descended, tempered by cool petrichor stirring relief across cracked land. But it was no victory. Bodies cooled in mud, gun oil stung nostrils, and inside her ribcage some dormant terror thrummed hungry for escape. Mercer knelt opposite her, rain tracing hard jaw, voice low. "Town owes you." She shook head. "I owe myself in gathering." Dark Ridley and others approached, lifting Caleb's body, carrying him toward church step for the undertaker come morning. Mercer stood, offering hand. Ilara rose with him, knees aching, senses thrumming. "Stay at Finch's?" He asked. "Yes, I'll walk you," not protective. Simply practical, two warriors acknowledging peril not yet spent. They moved beneath dripping awnings, thunder fading but leaving something taut in heavy air. Every lamp seemed brighter against gloom, every creak of board underfoot louder. The boy at her side clutched Broom's broken handle like trophy, glancing up at her with awe that felt undeserved. Outside the boarding house, Mercer halted. Light glowed warm behind floral curtains. Rain smell mingled with wild sage carried from foothills. He looked at Ilara, eyes dark amber beneath brim. "Pharaoh's kin will ride again." "Town will need plans," Ilara swallowed. "Running isn't." "Plan." A faint smile tugged one corner of his mouth swift, gone. "Good." He tipped hat, turned back into night dot. She watched until his silhouette melted into mist, then slipped inside where Dahlia Finch pressed herb poultice to her cheek and exclaimed over torn sleeve. Where townsfolk whispered stories already warping round what happened. Mercer's aim, Ridley's shot, the stranger who stood for a boy. Ilara climbed narrow stairs to lonely room. Sitting on edge of iron bedstead, she unlaced boots with trembling fingers. When she peeled damp sock from left foot, she found blood from a nail she hadn't felt in chaos. Pain registered now, insisting she was flesh again, not adrenaline ghost. She cleaned wound, hand steady despite tremor beneath skin, and wondered why Mercer hadn't drawn first, why he offered peace not dominance, and why his eyes when they met hers felt like open doors rather than weapons. Questions stirred deeper waters, scary and exhilarating at once. Wind-rattled pain. She rose to latch shutter and froze. Across street, atop ridge of mercantile roof, two figures crouched in rain, rifles glinting under moon. Not townsfolk guards. These men were long dusters slick with travel. One raised spyglass toward her. Window then pivoted to pointed hills beyond, where faint lantern bobbed likely, Mercer crossing gulch toward his ranch. Assassins. Ilara's breath punched out. She stepped back into shadow just as the nearer rifle swung toward her lighted window. Glass exploded. She hit floor as shards rained. Lamp toppled, flames snuffing. Footsteps hammered stairs, Mrs. Finch rushing. More glass shattered in hallway. Ilara crawled to wardrobe, heart a wild drum, mind racing one truth. Caleb Pharaoh died, but his lies lived on, and others came hungry for vengeance. And they thought killing Mercer and anyone aiding him would settle the score. Blood trickled anew down her cheek, mingling with sweat and rainwater drying in hair. She glanced at cracked mirror, reflecting sliver of cloud-stained moon, and whispered again. Fierce this time, no running. Outside, rifles clacked as unseen enemies leapt from roof. Giving pursuit toward the gulch, Ilara pushed to her feet, seized her travel bag, and yanked free the small Smith & Wesson she prayed never to fire again. Metal felt heavier than memory, but resolve steadied grip. She bolted from room, past Dahlia's shouts, downstairs and out into dripping night. After the hunters chasing a man who believed courage was arithmetic of choices. Lightning flickered. One last time, revealing the trail of hoofprints bleeding toward the black mouth of Mercer Canyon. Ilara Winslow followed, and the night, once merely dark, swallowed them all in pitch that tasted of gun smoke and tomorrow's reckoning. Reckoning took the shape of midnight gullies and breath that smoked in desert chill. Ilara raced across rusted paths northern flats, moonlight smearing wet prints where storm water pooled in wagon ruts. Her heartbeat hammered the same staccato. As hooves ahead, the assassins who had fired at Mercer's window light, then plunged after him into the canyon. The Smith and Wesson felt unfamiliar despite months carried in silence. Its walnut grip burned her palm with the memory of choices she swore never to repeat. Yet the promise she'd carved into her own marrow, no running, drove her legs harder than dread. Each stride jarred splinter glass still lodged in her sleeve, but pain was only proof she still bled for purpose. Silver clouds shredded across a pale half-moon, illuminating jagged silhouettes of Yucca and the heave of Mercer Ridge beyond. Wind hissed through greasewood, carrying distant shoutsmen riling one another to courage, or maybe to cruelty neither yet believed would cost them everything. A dark shape detached from the scrub ahead. Elara skidded, raising the revolver half an inch before recognition clicked. The Baymar. Reins dragged in dust, saddle empty. The animal trembled yet waited, hips scored by a wheel where a bullet had grazed leather flank strap. Mercer had loosed her rather than risk her caught in crossfire. The Mare's whites showed, but she stood, sides heaving, as though some part of the rider's iron discipline lived in her bones. "Easy, girl," Elara whispered, sliding cold fingers along sweat, slick neck. Lightning earlier had spooked every creature, but this Mare only shook, mane as if to say choose. Elara holstered the pistol and swung up awkwardly, skirt damp, boot toe fumbling, and the animal launched forward before she'd settled. The road narrowed between basalt rises pitted by ancient lava bubbles. In that funnel, echoes amplified, clatter of loose stone, curses ricocheting, then a single gunshot flat and final. The Mare flattened ears, lunging faster. Wind tore tears from Elara's eyes. She blinked them clear and saw sparks muzzle flashes, brief orange tongues ahead at canyon mouth. 3, 4 shooters trading fire with one unseen shape on higher ground. Alden Mercer. She felt the certainty as she felt the horse's heartbeat through sinew, steady, deliberate, refusing panic. He was alive and holding them. But alone, terrain pitched upward. She reined left where volcanic shelves jutted like crooked stairs toward a ledge above the gunman. The Mare scrabbled, shoes striking flint. Elara leaned forward, balancing weight, as miners taught hauling ore carts up timber slats. Pebbles cascaded into darkness, but shooters, intent on the ridge face, never glanced back. She tethered the Mare behind an outcrop, dropped to belly, and inched the final yards. Moonlight silvered the canyon floor. 2 men crouched behind a toppled saguaro skeleton, another flanking to the right, 4th further back holding horses. Their rifles barked in relay at a sliver of overhang where Mercer's silhouette returned. Measured fire 1 bullet for every 3 of theirs, each placement purposeful. Stone chips rained near his hat brim, yet he didn't duck, only shifted stance, conserving ammunition like a mathematician counts breath. Elara scanned for advantage. 30 feet below, shale formed an angle. If she slid closer, she could flank the flankers. But nerves sang. In Bitter Creek, she'd fired at targets, never men. Caleb's corpse still glazed her memory with rain-diluted blood. Choices shape tomorrow, Mercer's earlier words floated back. She exhaled, let the smith and Wesson rest across her forearms, sights aligning on the farthest horse handler. 1 deep breath carried the stink of wet creosote. On the half-beat after inhale, she squeezed. Crack. The handler yelped, rifle spinning from numbed hand. Horses screamed and reared, ropes tangling. Chaos blossomed. Elara fired again, too high butt. Splinters showered the pair behind the cactus and they whirled, confused by angle. Mercer exploited that instant. 2 reports rapid, precise. 1 assailant collapsed clutching thigh. The other's rifle shattered at stock, driving splinters into cheek. The remaining shooter bolted up slope right toward Elara's perch. Scrambled back, heart lunging, but loose gravel betrayed him. His feet slipped, sending him sliding to hands and knees. He looked up, finding her pistol inches from his forehead. "Drop it," she said, voice gone iron. He froze, fingers splayed. Rifle clattered down the grade. Up close he looked scarcely older than the stable boy, soft-jawed, a peach fuzz mustache trembling over cracked lips. Another child, armed by cowards to avenge cowards. "Stand," she ordered. His legs quivered, but obeyed. "Down the trail move. Keep your hands where the moon can read them." Below, Mercer climbed from cover, revolver steady on injured gunmen, now swearing in Spanish between breaths. Mercer kicked weapons aside, then turned, eyes scanning until they found Ilara. Relief. Flickered a sunrise through cedar vanishing. Beneath control. They gathered the wounded and herded captives to canyon mouth, where cloudbreak bathed stone in pewter light. Mercer bound the talkative one's thigh with torn shirt. Bleeding slowed, but the man hissed curses until Mercer's look quelled him. The youngest tripped over apologies thrice before falling silent under Ilara's level stare. When the prisoners were secured, Mercer led her aside. Rain had rinsed dust from his hair. Moonlight caught silver strands near temple. Up close, she saw a crease of pain when he moved the bullet, graze from earlier stitched by his own hand. "You shouldn't there." "Followed," he said quietly, though the words lacked reprimand. "I know," she answered, surprising herself with truth's ease. "But I did." A pause filled by distant thunder trudging east. He exhaled through nose, nod once acceptance. "Your cheek?" "Glass," she said. A scratch, another nod. Conversation felt like two people cautiously testing floorboards. After an earthquake finding, which plank still held Dot, she gestured to captives. "Who sent them?" "Caleb's brothers. Pharaoh's uncle, Grant. He hires rifles quick as others buy whiskey. Caleb was his sharpest fang. Now he'll want to bite deeper." Mercer studied her expression. "You already chose a side. I chose a line I won't cross again," she replied. "Leaving innocence to fend alone." He regarded her long. "That line leads through fire. I remember flames," she whispered, voice threading with memory. Lightning flickered far away. She forced breath even. "Fire doesn't scare me as much as the stories fear tells." Mercer's gaze softened. Or perhaps the moonlight shifted. Either way, trust bridged a chasm her own mind had declared uncrossable. They pushed captives ahead on foot, leading now calmed horses back toward town. The wounded man limped but managed. Mercer's binding held firm. Dawn's first cobalt streak etched the horizon when rusted paths' outlines emerged, windows flickering lamp gold. Silhouettes posted as lookouts on roofs Ridley had organized while they'd been gone. People materialized in muddy street, guns half raised until faces resolved. Relief rippled. Mrs. Finch herself bustled forward, scolding Ilara for vanishing. Injured, fussing over stitches she insisted the doctor would set proper. Behind her, the boy from the stable stared at Ilara as though she'd lassoed the moon. Marshal Mallister, arm in sling and eyes bloodshot, but burning bright, stepped from infirmary veranda. Mercer, Miss Winslow inside. Now, they followed. Him into the clabbered office smelling of iodine and coffee left too long on stove. Doc Green looked up from ledger. "Sit, no arguments." He re-cleaned Ilara's cheek, removed stray glass shards she'd missed, dabbed salve. When he unbuttoned Mercer's shirt to examine the shoulder graze, Ilara saw mapwork of scars, knife arcs, bullet pucker near rib, a long white ladder across abdomen. History etched under skin where few would ever look. Mallister waited till bandages were tied, then leaned against cluttered desk. "I've sent telegrams to Carson City, Fort Providence, and every ranch within a day's ride. But we both know reinforcements won't arrive before Grant Pharaoh storms back, looking to bury us." Mercer said nothing. His jaw tightened. The marshal continued, "Town scared yet willing. Problem is they're farmers, clerks, laundresses, good people, not fighters. I need someone to shape them into a wall." His gaze fixed on Mercer. "That someone wears your boots." Silence pulsed. Wind rattled shutters. Mercer rubbed thumb along bandage edge as though memorizing pain. "I swore to leave gunfighting behind, Bob." Mallister's eyes softened, but voice stayed stern. "You swore to protect this land too. Sometimes lines cross. Alara spoke, surprising both men. Lines cross because men like Grant paint over them. If we don't redraw, he decides the map. Mercer studied her, then the marshal. Finally he nodded once weighty as winter breaking. All right. But we don't train them to kill. We train them to stop killers. Doc Green exhaled audible relief. Already infirmary. Hope we won't need it, Mercer said, rising. But prepare anyway. By noon the church bell rang, not for sermon but for muster. Town. Gathered in dusty square where Mercer, hat brim low, outlined plain necessities, how to load and clean rifles, where to station lookouts, which alleys formed natural choke points. He spoke few words, yet each landed solid, carving fear into purpose. Alara found herself at his side, translating technique into tasks. Sandbags here, water barrels there, lamp oil moved from storefronts to church cellar in case of fire arrows. Men who'd never aimed beyond rabbit received patient correction. Women hammered boards over vulnerable windows. Even children carried messages brisk as barn swallows. Mercer watched her coordinate with Ridley, with Mrs. Finch, with the old sawmill. Foreman who offered spare timber. Later, while measuring distances between vantage posts, he said softly, "You plan like someone who's seen things burn." She flinched, then steadied. "I survived the Bitter Creek foundry blast. Flames ate half the hillside, and rumors ate. What was left of me?" He considered. Rumors feed on silence, and on witnesses who'd rather crucify than understand. She dragged sleeve across brow, smearing dust to clay. "Truth lost to smoke. Smoke clears," he said. "If someone fans it away." His tone made fan sound less like gesture and more like battle. She looked at him, at the line of jaw roughened by day-old stubble, at eyes neither blue nor green but the color of pine bark after rain. Something inside her eased for the first time in years, the way chains go slack one link at a time. Asterisk. Twilight painted western sky blood, orange when Lookout sighted 5 riders cresting the South Ridge. Spyglass confirmed all eyes. Ranchers from Willow Bend armed with breech loaders and hard dispositions toward outlaws. Their arrival boosted spirits the way a storm break lifts pounding heat. They brought dire news, though a Faro column 50. Men strong left Drybone Pass at dawn, burning fence lines and conscripting drifters. Grant's banner, a rattlesnake coiled around sheaf of wheat, flew at their lead. .50.ELARA felt the number thud in her sternum. They had maybe 30 defenders, counting ranchers and able-bodied townsfolk, half inexperienced. But numbers weren't the whole sum. Terrain will, surprise carved additional digits. Mercer's plan pivoted. They would not wait behind walls. They'd set a gauntlet along narrow cut where canyon throat forced riders 2 abreast. Sharpshooters atop slag slopes could channel the force, buying time for townsfolk to flee north if line collapsed. "You mean to bait a hornet's nest with your own hide?" Ridley muttered. Mercer shrugged. "Better one nest than the whole valley," Mallister added. "I'll command second. Line at town perimeter." Alara swallowed. "And me? With me on the ridge," Mercer said before she finished. "You spot gaps, relay positions. That pistol of yours, keep it only for last resort." She opened mouth to argue she could shoot rifle well enough, but saw something in his gaze. Not doubt, but knowledge of what another kill might carve into her. She nodded, night drilled. Stars into black velvet. In the chill hours before dawn, Alara crouched behind basalt boulder high above narrow cut. Mercer lay prone nearby, Spencer rifle cradled like extension of thought. Across choke point, Ridley's nephew Caleb, not to be confused with dead Pharaoh nested in scree with borrowed Springfield. Farther along ridge, 2 Willow Bend ranchers sighted carbines. Below, canyon floor slept under moon shadow. Coyotes yipped on distant flats. Otherwise silence breathed slow, holding secrets. Mercer unfolded spyglass, adjusting the brass until eastern horizon sharpened. He scanned long, then whispered, "Torches 2 miles off." Ilara's stomach dropped. 50. The number refused comfort. She steadied breath. Mind racing through tasks. Mark targets, conserve ammunition, send mirror flashes to Malister if line broke. She touched the little signal mirror in her pocket, the size of a silver dollar feeling. "It's cool certainty." "I've been meaning to thank you," Mercer murmured. Eyes still on glass. She blinked. "For what?" "For showing that boy kindness." She thought of the stable lad clutching the broken broom and felt warmth stir despite oppressive cold. Kindness is cheaper than regret. He almost smiled. "Most folks still can't pay. Torches." Bobbed nearer. Now visible to naked eye, a river of small fires snaking canyon lip before funneling single file into the throat. Horses whickered. Iron rang against stone. Grant Farrow's banner caught moon. Snake scales glinting dull silver. Mercer. Rolled shoulder, settling rifle. Ilara read the taut line of his spine, prepared yet calm, like timber tested by storms and found resilient. She mirrored his inhale, letting fear ride out on exhale till muscles stopped quivering. First riders entered kill zone. Mercer waited. Second pair followed, torchlight painting canyon walls with flickering murals of greed and bravado. Still he waited. When maybe 8 men strung through the narrowest stretch, he said, "Now." 4 rifles spoke in choreographed thunder. Lead rider toppled. Second reeled, torch flying to ignite saddle blanket. Panic shivered through line. Horses jammed against basalt, riders cursing. Mercer worked lever smoothly, shot, cycle, shot each round deliberate. Ilara spotted targets. Straying toward blind pockets, called corrections. Caleb Springfield barked. A Pharaoh gunman spun into dust. Fire spread where drop torch set greasebush ablaze, smoke choking path. More riders heeled mounts desperately, but canyon floor narrowed further ahead. Retreat meant trampling comrades. They fired upward blindly, ricochets. Whining but ridge angles shielded defenders. Grant Farrow himself emerged at mouth, roaring orders, revolver waving. Tall and duster, beard plated with bone beads, he cut figure of fearsome patriarch. He rallied men, pushing forward under hail of lead. Mercer pivoted, line sights, squeezed spark at muzzle, but a lieutenant jostled Grant's horse last second. Bullet tore through banner pole instead, snake flag crumpling. Grant raised snarling visage to ridge. "Mercer!" His voice bounced labyrinthine, carrying promise of ruin. He spurred savagely, forcing horse up rocky ramp left of cut, an impossible scramble, save for desperation. 2 men followed, zigzagging among scree, seeking slope defenders. Mercer's next round struck one pursuer, but the other gained elevation. Carbine spitting, stone shards bit Ilara's cheek anew. She ducked, glancing to spot they were flanked. Caleb scrambled to reposition, but loose shale gave under boots. He slipped, rifle clanging away. Ilara seized her pistol. Last resort. She steadied hands. This time the target wasn't the boy, but a man intent on killing everyone she'd chosen to stand beside. At 30 yards she fired once. Shot cracked through night, clean, concise. The rider jerked, saddle seat darkening as carbine dropped. Horse veered, carrying wounded man downslope into chaos. Breath exploded from her lungs, adrenaline surging. Electric, no time to feel. She pivoted, searching for Mercer, found him on knees, rifle barrel bent at odd angle. A lucky slug had struck the Spencer's sight, twisting steel useless. Ridge compromised, he hissed. "We fall back." "Signal the marshal." She fumbled mirror from pocket, but muzzle flashes below peppered ridgeline. One struck rock near Mercer, ricochet whistling past his ear. He dragged her behind larger boulder, too exposed. "We run the saddle east, drop to town. What about Caleb?" She gasped. A shout answered Caleb, scrambling up, face smeared with blood from a brow gash, but waving okay. He retrieved rifle, limped after them. Ilara tucked mirror away. They'd have to warn Mallister in person. Mercer slung ruined Spencer. Drew both revolvers. Stay close. They sprinted along knife-edge trail under bullets that chased sparks from stone. Smoke from burning greasebush billowed up, cloaking retreat. Coyotes yelped panic as scattered horses thundered back along. Cut. Somewhere Grant Farrow roared orders. Somewhere else a wounded mount screamed until Pistol Mercy silenced it. They reached Eastern Saddle where basalt dropped to Ward Valley. Town lights glittered, a fragile constellation. Mercer paused to let defenders farther along ridge converge Willow Bend ranchers, one limping, Ridley's nephew with fresh. Burned from powder flash, the line had held but at cost. UNIT, ION low, adrenaline frayed. Marshall needs word, Mercer said. Ilara take Caleb, the trail's faster for two. We'll delay pursuit. She opened mouth to object, she could. Fight but read his logic. She was fastest runner, Caleb injured but mobile, message critical. She nodded, squeezed his forearm once calloused warmth. Anchor and bolted downslope. Caleb hobbling behind. Halfway, echoing blasts signaled renewed firefight atop ridge. Each crack felt like fist to spine. She pushed harder, lungs burning, weaving through Ocotillo spine's ripping skirts. Valley floor met them with a slap of cold air, heavy with smoke from distant brush fires lit by Pharaoh saboteurs. They burst into town perimeter where Mallister's barricade stood wagons, crates, sand barrels manned by townsfolk gripping guns. With white knuckles. Ilara relayed breathless. Flank breached, ridge defenders falling back. Grant alive, numbers halved but furious. Mallister's good hand curled to fist. They'll be here by dawn. Dawn light already pinked the eastern. Peaks, no time to reshape walls. He barked orders. Shift sharpshooters to rooftops. Keep women and children in church cellar. Water buckets every 10 yards. Ilara turned to Caleb. Get to Doc. Green, he'll stitch that head. She loaded fresh rounds into pistol. Praying she wouldn't need them again, but knowing prayer alone changes nothing. Main Street lay eerily silent save clank of barricade chains. Soft sobs from someone inside general store. She moved a boarding house veranda for vantage. From there, she saw Mercer and remaining ridge fighters jogging across flat silhouettes against sunrise blaze. They'd made it. Behind them maybe 20 Pharaoh riders straggled, dust plumes thin but swift. Grant led, duster ripped, banner pole broken. Yet held high like spite-made timber. Ilara's pulse quickened into hammerdrum. Mercer slid over barricade, slapped exhausted men on shoulders, then caught her gaze. No words needed. They both knew storm hadn't broken, merely shifted ground. Grant ranged short of rifle range, surveying defenses as sun cleared ridge. Its light painted him gold, as though cruelty could masquerade as blessing. He raised voice amplified by canyon echo. Mercer, you stole my nephew's life, my son's pride, my debtor's coin. I'll take this settlement and salt it to memory. Mercer stepped beyond wagon shield, empty hands raised to show parley. Murmurs rippled people feared trap. Ilara's throat tightened as he strode 5 paces into open street. Take your wounded and go, he called. Leave these people be. Your quarrel's with me. Grant laughed, a canyon rumble. Everything here breathes because I allow. He yanked carbine from saddle scabbard. Aimed not at Mercer, but at the water tower behind boarding house. Ilara's stomach clenched. One bullet through that redwood cask and the town's sole reserve would drain before midday fire defense undone. She lifted pistol, but distance too great. Mercer saw intention seconds before trigger press. He dove sideways, drawing one revolver mid-roll. Shot cracked, striking Grant's gun barrel. Spark shower. Carbine jerked wide till shot tore tower, leg not the tank. Tower groaned but held. Grant cursed, cradling bruised hand. Riders surged at his order, thundering toward barricades. Rifles answered from rooftops. Plumes of splinters burst along wagon sides. Streets filled with gun smoke and screams. Ilara fired from porch, ducking. Slug that punched hole through clabbered inches from ear. Chaos embraced another dawn, she glimpsed. Mercer reloading behind flour sacks, Mallister directing volleys, Ridley's niece slinging ammo boxes. Shots rang like smith hammers forging fate. Somewhere a lantern shattered starting small fire. Children's cries drifted from church, then muffled as doors slammed. Ilara breathed cordite. Steadied shaking hands rose to sight target a rider. Vaulting barricade. She pulled trigger. Pistol jumped. Rider spun, unseated. Another climbed atop wagon. She pivoted. Chamber clicked dash empty dot. She ducked, fumbling for cartridges. Fingers slick with sweat. One slipped, rolled between boards. She cursed. Bootsteps thudded veranda. She looked up into muzzle of shotgun, held by Pharaoh brute eyes bloodshot with fury. Time slowed again. She saw her own reflection warped on gunmetal, saw the future narrowing to single point. Her thumb found rounded pocket lip, but too late. Deafening blast erupted, behind the brute. His chest blossomed red, shotgun clattered. He toppled off porch into dust. Mrs. Dahlia Finch stood in doorway, double barrel smoking, face pale but fierce. "My linens," she said, voice cracking, "are not yours to soil." Ilara stared. Stunned gratitude, then jammed cartridge home, snapped cylinder. Stepped around body back into fray. Battle swirled hours, then heartbeats timeline lost beneath. Scream of iron. Grant's men pressed, took cover, fell back, surged again. Defenders staggered, but lines re-knit around Mercer's barked commands. Mallister's stolid grit. Allura's quick thinking rerouting wounded, dousing fires, flanking. Shooters through alley she mapped earlier. Sun climbed. Shadows shrank. Heat rose off boards as though night storm had never been. By late morning gunfire sputtered sporadic. Water tower still stood. Barricades splintered but unbroken. Grant pulled battered rein at street mouth. Counting dwindled. Ranks only 7 remained upright. Others lay moaning or silent on blood-mud ground. His face twisted into mask of incredulity, edged with terror he could not admit. Mercer stepped out again. Revolver holstered, hands blood spattered but steady. "Ride," he said. "Don't look back." Grant's stare slashed across survivor. Corpses, then up toward rooftops where housewives leveled rifles with unblinking resolve. Pride warred with preservation. Finally he spat, slapped reins, wheeled mount. Remaining Pharaoh riders followed, leaving dust plume curling like question mark. Silence did not return at once, but ebbed, wave by wave. Last gunshot echo, last horse hoof fade, last groan of dragging wounded. When quiet reigned utterly, it felt foreign, fragile. Ridley whooped first, a ragged, incredulous cheer. It rippled through defenders. Some laughed, some cried, some simply sagged where they stood. Mallister doffed hat, wiping sweat from brow carved with fresh grays. Ilara holstered pistol with trembling fingers. Adrenaline crashed, leaving limbs rubber. She looked for Mercer, found him leaning against water tower, leg he'd saved. Blood seeped through sleeve again, reopening graze. His eyes tracked retreating dust until it dispersed into heat shimmer. She crossed rubble-littered street toward him, boots crunching broken glass and spent casings. He noticed her, straightened. She tried to speak, but words tangled behind exhaustion and something fiercer, bloom of gratitude and terrifying tenderness. Instead she reached, pressing palm over his bleeding shoulder. He covered her hand with his warm despite everything, and the town, forgotten by time, exhaled as though centuries of dust finally lifted. Cheer rose, echoing off canyon. Yet even in triumph, Ilara felt undercurrent. Grant Pharaoh's retreat was not surrender but postponement. He would ride for reinforcements, for vengeance amplified. Her gaze met Mercer's. He understood too. Victory bought breathing room, nothing more. Sirens of memory wailed inside her, flames and rumor still hunting. But for first time dread did not whisper run. It asked. Asterisk, what next wall will you build? Asterisk, Mercer squeezed her fingers once, then released. Rest now. Tonight we plan for tomorrow. She nodded, though rest sounded mythical. A fresh cheer erupted as Mrs. Finch marched down street, brandishing teapot like trophy, announcing free stew for every soul. Laughter followed, tremulous but genuine. Dawn's gold burned overhead, baking blood to rust. Ilara wiped brow, leaving streak of dried crimson and dust. Wariness coiled deep, but alongside it burned new ally courage fused with belonging. Against the backdrop of battered storefronts and makeshift ramparts, she sensed story still stretching far beyond this sunrise. Grant's shadow, rumor's sting, her own redemption, all threads tightening toward unknown tapestry, somewhere beyond. Ridge of vultures circled high, reading morning air. The desert keeps its accounts. Unpaid debts ride wind until collected. Ilara squared shoulders, inhaled scorched sage, and walked with Mercer toward the boarding house where wounded awaited tending and strategies begged ink. Behind them, townsfolk lifted the broken snake banner, tore it into strips, and used the cloth to tie makeshift splints, a warning to any who still believed fear the strongest currency in rusted path. High above, sun climbed indifferent, but in the hearts of those who'd stood firm, a different star ignited small yet fierce, promising light no night could entirely quench. And far to the south, across red mesas shimmering with heat, Grant Farrell halted at the rim of Coyote Flats, stared back toward the speckled valley, and swore an oath thick with venom and grief, an oath that would send fresh storms, galloping toward the Mercer ranch long before the settlers' courage cooled. Lightning had not finished writing its name. Across these skies, wind whispered over rusted path that night, carrying the scent of smoldered brush and fresh-turned earth. The town lay in uneasy slumber. Lamps shuddered, barricades half dismantled but not removed, rifles kept within arm's reach beside every pallet on the church floor. Above the hush, the anvil chime of a lone hammer rang from Mercer's barn outside town, beating steel against steel until constellations wheeled west and dawn paled the high desert sky. Ilara found him there, as violet faded to quartz pink. She followed rhythmic clangs through the yawning barn door to see sparks cascading in sunless glitter. Mercer, bare-armed, forged metal on a makeshift stand. Farm horseshoes melted, hammer heads split, any iron salvageable fed his portable. Forge, sweat beaded across collarbones, tracing lean muscle and fresh-patched wounds. His focus conjured a quiet devotion, as though each strike hammered resolve into shape. She hovered by stacked hay, unwilling to break the spell. But eventually he paused, turning the glowing strip onto the anvil horn. "Can't sleep?" he asked without looking. "Not while you're swinging thunder," she answered, stepping into amber firelight. "What are you making?" He plunged the bar into quench bucket steam, hissed like restless spirits, then lifted a half-formed spike. Caltrops. Enough to seed every ravine Grant might ride. Her brow creased. Caltrops slow hoof and foot but can cripple livestock beyond saving. Better a horse lame than a child dead. His tone held no challenge, only weary arithmetic. He met her gaze then, heat of forge kindling copper in his eyes. "You doubt?" She swallowed, pulse skittering. "I doubt peace bought with iron teeth alone. Iron's a language men like Grant understand." Mercer set the caltrop aside, lifted hammer again. "But we'll teach him in dialects he's never heard too, such as..." She moved closer, sliding gloves from hands still nicked by splinters, such as mercy he can't comprehend. Discipline, unity, sparks scattered between them. And a woman who stands when others kneel. The words hovered warm as forge. Heat. Ilara reached to steady the iron bar while he struck, their joined grip steadying each blow. Under hammerfall, she felt rhythm echo heartbeat shared cadence forging more than steel, By late morning, town buzzed with rebuilding, yet tension coiled beneath every gesture. Fence rails slated for pasture repair were sawed into stakes. Windows, ruined by stray bullets, replaced with hinged shutters lined in scrap sheet metal. The schoolhouse bellet's rope, burned through an attack, was restrung, so any lookout could peal warning across valley. Mallister paced the main boardwalk, sling discarded, though stitches pulled. He conferred with Ridley, Finch, sawmill foreman, Harris, assigning watches and ration lists. When Ilara delivered coffee, he accepted with grateful grunt. Any sign of riders? Sky's clean far as ridge, she reported. But vultures circle Coyote Flats. Can't tell if carrion or cavalry. Mallister's jaw tightened. We bled them hard. Grant won't charge again without bigger hammer. That means recruiting desperados with nothing left to lose. Those don't march before payday. How long? 2 days if he empties pockets. A week if coin runs thin. He sipped bitter brew. We use every heartbeat. Use became toil. Mercer and ranchers ringed town perimeter with trenches disguised under tumbleweed mats. Ilara, Mrs. Finch, and Ridley's niece melted lard and pine tar for improvised Greek fire, not to be loosed lightly, but kept as dragon's breath should barricades fall. Children sharpened pencils into pungy stakes. Proud, though unknown fear flickered in wide eyes. Doc Green converted church vestibule into triage, his calm presence preaching louder than hymns once had. Stable boy Thomas, now constant shadow to Ilara, volunteered as runner, carrying bandages, messages, and occasional pep talks from wounded who insisted on helping. Evening alpenglow painted Mercer Range rose gold when scouts galloped in. 2 Navajo cousins from Willow Bend who owed Mercer favors unspoken. Their news fell like frost over campfire talk. A motley band of gun hands, maybe 40 strong, spotted midday at Whisper Springs, buying black powder and 60-weight dynamite. Mal Lister gathered counsel in Jansen's shuttered saloon. Oil lamp halos cast gaunt spectacle faces drawn, eyes glassy with fatigue. Grant means to shatter more than walls, the marshal said, voice rasping. We can't hold if he blasts through perimeter tomorrow. Ridley cursed under breath. Harris clenched jaw. Mrs. Finch folded arms, but tremor betrayed dread. Mercer leaned forward, elbows on scarred table. We take fight to him tonight. Silence pooled, dense. Mallister pinched bridge of nose. Ride into his camp blind? We'd die before planting fuse. I've mapped the flats, Ilara interjected. Mesquite gullies funnel wind, tents likely pitched leeward. Powder wagons he'll place downslope away from cook fires. We strike wagons, cut his fangs before dawn. Ridley stared. You're proposing sabotage. She met his doubt. I worked foundry. I know fire's appetite. We feed it exactly what he carries to burn us. Mrs. Finch breathed, may God forgive, then trailed off. Mercer's gaze held Ilara's. Steady as compass. I'll lead. Need 5 riders. Quick in, quicker out. Mallister exhaled slow. Leave me 10 defenders and Mary's prayers. After debate, they chose company. Mercer, Ilara, Willow Bend cousins Yahtzee and Keel, and quiet sawmill foreman Harris, whose night vision bested owls. They would ride moonless second watch, guided by starlight and Yahtzee's memory of coyote trails. Before dispersal, Mercer laid a hand on Mallister's shoulder. If we fail, take townsfolk north through Hidden Wash. Leave buildings, save blood. The marshal's eyes shone wet. Don't you fail. Stars wheel silent when stakes are highest. 5 riders slipped from rusted path like ghosts stitched to desert courts. Hooves muffled in burlap wraps, a trick Yahtzee learned outrunning cavalry scouts, softened footfalls across gulch gravel. Ilara rode the bay again, saddle cinched tight, pistol holstered but rifle slung this time. Courtesy of Willow Bend. Coyote Flats unfurled under starlight, pale as bleached bone. Distant campfires shimmered near Spring Oasis, guarded by cottonwoods, whispering dry secrets. Grant's camp sprawl glowed amber tents, wagons, picket line of horses dark against flame hush. They dismounted behind ridgeline. Tethered mounts advanced belly low through sage. Night air bit lungs. The only sound, heartbeats hammering proximity. Mercer signaled hand motions. Yahtzee and Keel flank east to loose horses. Harris cuts powder wagon lashings. Ilara covers Mercer while he plants fuse rope soaked in pine tar. They split. Ilara trailed Mercer, weaving between cactus shadows. In torchlight she glimpsed sentry silhouettes, men slouching half-drunk under gibbous moon. A whiskey jug passed. Laughter bubbled false bravado, masking tomorrow's slaughter. She steadied breath, adjusting rifle sights. Mercer's knife flashed, slicing barrel lanyards on first wagon. He wedged fuse beneath tarpaulin, dripped lamp oil. Ilara watched sentry path, one man staggering closer. She whispered click of rifle safety, sighted torso. But Mercer paused, shook head faintly, no kill unless forced. She let sights drift. The drunk urinated against cartwheel, then stumbled away, singing off key. Second wagon deeper toward camp. Center. Firelight brighter. Risk soared. Mercer moved swift predator, sliding beneath wagon bed. Suddenly a dog barked, a mangy mutt tethered near chuck wagon. Ilara's pulse spiked. She whistled soft thrice sound of desert nightbird, Yahtzee. Taut. Dog's ears perked. Confusion stilled bark. Then Yahtzee's shadow appeared, tossing jerky scrap, luring mutt aside. Mercer surfaced, fuse ready. Just then a sentinel emerged from tent, trousers half-laced, heading toward latrine. His lantern swung, beam slicing across. Mercer crouched. Sentinel froze, mouth opening. Ilara fired bullets shearing lantern glass. Oil igniting plume that blinded guard. He screamed, flailing. Mercer lunged, clamped hand over mouth, dragged him behind wagon, choking him into unconsciousness, not death. Shouts rose. Time collapsed. Mercer struck flint to fuse spark worming. Quicksilver along tar-soaked rope. He sprinted low toward brush. Ilara covered retreat, firing twice into air to mask footfalls. Then ran. Yahtzee and Keel whooped coyote cries. Slapping picket lines, horses bolted, stampeding through tents. Chaos erupted. Men woke cursing, kicked by panicked hooves. Harris hauled. Last crate of dynamite off cart, rolling into gully just as first wagon exploded. The night split, white-hot boom shook ground, fireball towering. Second wagon followed, thunder coupling, lights of hell. Shockwaves flung tents skyward, dumped men into thorn patches. Horses vanished into darkness, hooves drumming apocalypse. Mercer's team regrouped behind ridge as debris rained. Yahtzee bled scratch across cheek but grinned feral. Harris panted. Powder gone, horses gone. Let's ride. They mounted, urging beasts north. Behind them camp blazed like fallen star. Grant's shouts ragged amid mayhem. Bullets whistled. Wild, far off. No pursuit mounted, no mounts left. They reached rusted path before dawn. Watchers hailed relief. Mallister clasped Mercer's forearm. Joy fused with terror after seeing horizon glow. Did you burn the world? Only a peace that threatened ours, Mercer said. Ilara's limbs shook as adrenaline ebbed. Mrs. Finch forced hot tea into her hands. Steam smelled of cloves, anchored senses. She raised cup to lips, but rifle butt bruise on shoulder screamed. Tea sloshed. Mercer steadied cup with gentle fingers. They shared silent smile, exhausted. Alive. Sunrise revealed smoke plume curling from distant flats, vultures spiraling above scorched wagons. Scouts returned midday. Grant survived, 7 men wounded, others scattered on foot. He'd ridden southwest alone, eyes crazed, one hand bandaged from lantern burn. Rumor said he vowed to sell his ranch deed for bounties on Mercer and Ilara too. $1,000 each, dead or alive. Enough to draw vultures of another kind, Mallister muttered. Every cut throat between Carson and Tucson will smell blood. Mercer nodded grim. Then we guide the scent, he unveiled next plan. Stage exodus. Feigned evacuation north tomorrow at dusk, leaving town seemingly abandoned. Bounty hunters would rush deserted streets hunting treasure, only to meet trenches, caltrops, and rooftop rifles waiting. Alara frowned. Using ourselves as bait again? Using their greed, Mercer corrected. Grant's last weapon, Ridley chuckled. Dark, let's bankrupt him. Preparations spun like loom. Wagons loaded with visible trunks but hidden rifle stacks rolled to valley mouth false caravan, watched by distant spies Mallister let escape. Behind walls children rehearsed cellar routes. Women filled buckets. Men sank caltrops inches under. Dust along alleys. That evening, Alara slipped into boarding house room to retrieve spare cartridges. She paused at cracked mirror, remembering first night bullet hole still starred pain. Her reflection different now, soot smudged, eyes sharpened by purpose not fear, coward no longer fit. She wore courage like weathered leather. Footfall outside Mercer. Wrapped knuckles on jam. You rolling with convoy or staying? A smile tugged. Wherever calls for hammer and tongs. He stepped in, closing door gentler than war allowed. Dust motes danced between them. I owe you life twice over. We're trading rescues, she teased, feeling cheeks warm. Silence thickened, heavy with unspoken threads weaving since canyon night. He brushed fingers down bullet-marred window frame. When this ends. Heart. Thudded. If this ends. He met her gaze, tenderness lurking beneath storm scars. I'd like to see the world you run toward, instead of from. Her breath hitched. Maybe I'll show you. Door bangs downstairs, shattered moment. Ridley hollering scouts sighted riders dozens. Missions fuse lit. ELARA, and Mercer exchanged resolved nod, then strode into dusk where townsfolk, already donned stage faces, panic. For spies' eyes. Wagons creaked north, dust plumes signaling flight. When caravan rounded ridge out of sight, it circled back through dry creek, hiding behind sandstone buttress where horses tethered silent. Children hushed, Mrs. Finch hushed. Them more. Moon slivered above ridgeline like blade dot in rusted paths empty Main Street. Mallister, Mercer, Alara, and 30 defenders melted into shadows. Lattice of lamp oil lines snaked toward strategic crates, Greek fire traps ready. Hour crawled. Coyotes yipped. Then they came. First riders galloped bold, pistols waving. Bounty posters fluttered from saddle horns. Mercer, Winslow, some printed large. More men spilled behind ruffians, ex-soldiers, drifters with nothing to lose. They saw empty fronts, laughed, urged mounts deeper towards square. Mercer signaled. Town's quiet answered. Bounty gang dismounted, splitting to search. One bent. To pry saloon door. His boot found caltrop scream slashed hush. Others drawn. Caution sparked, but too late. Rooftop rifles cracked. Chaos birthed. Alara knelt behind barrel line, squeezing trigger smooth. Shots echoed alley to alley. Mallister. Lobbed Greek fire jar. Flame whooshed along oil lines, roaring wall behind invaders, funneling them into crossfire. Horses panicked, trampling shooters. Some plunged into trenches, impaled on stakes. Bounty captain, a scar-lipped woman called rallied handful. Shoving through stable yard. Alara sprinted after, sliding beneath porch. She emerged rifle up, but Red grappled her bare-handed lightning fast. They tumbled, Alara's rifle skittering. Red drew knife, slash catching Alara's forearm. Pain seared but adrenaline soared. Alara head butted, grabbed wrist, twisted knife dropped. She kneed ribs, shoved free. Yanked pistol. Another figure tackled Red stable boy Thomas wielding broken broom shaft like spear. Red spun, backhanded him, he fell dazed. Knife regained, she lunged toward boy. Alara fired pistol, deafening bullet, punched Red's shoulder, spinning her. Mercer arrived, revolver level. Red frozen between muzzles finally dropped blade. Elsewhere, firefight ebbed. Twisted bodies littered street. Greek fire smoldered payload but spared timber buildings. Survivors fled south where Willow Bend riders cut retreat short, rounding prisoners. When smoke cleared, rusted path still stood. No defenders fell save minor wounds. Mallister praised every soul by name until voice cracked. Children emerged, wide-eyed, seeing home intact heroes hammered from ordinary folk. Yet celebration muted. Grant Farrow remained at large. Scouts later found note pinned to charred wagon wheel outside camp ruins. Mercer, Winslow. The snake molts but never dies. I will return on wings you cannot clip. Mercer, read note under lantern, jaw clenched. Ilara touched his arm. Snakes without dens wander till cold kills. He folded paper. Or find new holes to strike from. She searched his eyes. We'll meet him wherever. Lightning flared distant horizon, though skies dry heat. Light. Echoing promise. Town prepared for brief rest, though none slept deep. Under midnight hush, Mercer and Ilara sat on boarding house steps, watching stars pulse. She spoke soft. When I ran from Bitter Creek, I thought survival meant distance. Today I learned survival can mean staying. He nodded. And I learned promises can bend without breaking. Silence filled with cricket song, gentle after ear-ringing gunfire. He turned to her. How's arm? Will scar? She traced scratch. Scars remind us why skin matters. He smiled. Fate, I like your philosophy. Moon slipped behind ridge. She rested head on his shoulder despite bandage. He did not move away. Tomorrow would bring new threats, but tonight the wind smelled of quenched fire, and for the first time since. Legends began. The town forgotten by maps breathed, as though future belonged to those brave enough to forge it. Dawn would write next verse. Pink dawn glimmered upon the fractured barricades of rusted path, yet the wind carried no birdsong, only the faint hiss of cooling ashes where Greek fire slicks had burned themselves out. Ilara Winslow stood atop the water tower Mercer's bullet had saved and watched the desert exhale, a thin veil of heat. Below, townsfolk moved like sleepwalkers roused too early, stacking debris, salving burns, trying to believe night's victory meant safety. But every scrape of timber, every clang of moved barrel echoed warning. Grant Farrow still breathed. She touched the ragged edge of the scar-lit bullet hole in the tower leg, wood still damp from emergency pitch. Her bandaged forearm ached where Red's knife had kissed flesh, yet the pain grounded her thoughts. Somewhere south beyond shimmering mesas, Grant licked wounds and traded venom for coin. How many outlaws would the bounty posters tempt? How many Pinkerton detectives hungry? FOR commissions? How many railroad enforcers eager to keep valley land cheap and settlers pliant? She flexed fingers against the cool rim. The answer chilled her more than dawn wind. Boot steps creaked on ladder. Mercer climbed, cradling a battered field scope he'd scavenged at Coyote Flats. His coat flapped loose, revealing pistol belt. Newly cleaned, as if ceremony mattered. He halted beside her, gaze sweeping horizon. Smoke line 10 miles out, he murmured, handing scope. Campfires. More than we torched. Ilara braced scope against rail, glass steady. On far ridge, a smudge rose, a thin bruise of charcoal. Could be cowhands, too many. And trail dust around them heads this way. He inhaled, jaw set. We've 3 days, maybe 2. She lowered scope. Then let's use them. Mercer Ranch. Midday ***. The ranch sprawled 4 miles northwest of town, rolling pastures. Flanked by juniper copses, split rail fences following contours of dried creek beds. Cattle lowed among yellow grass tufts, tails flicking flies unaware of coming storm. Ilara rode beside Mercer along the main lane, Thomas on a pony behind carting coils of barbed wire. They'd left Mallister to fortify streets with older volunteers, while Mercer's younger riders, Caleb, Yahtzee, Keel transferred defenses to open country. Main house appeared cedar clapboards silvered by sun, veranda shaded by grapevine lattice. As they dismounted, a tall woman strode from barn wiping hands on leather apron. Steel gray braid swung against spine, eyes sharp as hawks. "About time you came home, Alden Mercer," she drawled. "I sent word yesterday about the stud." With laminitis, Mercer removed hat, sheepish. "Sorry, May. Fire in town. I heard cannon thunder and smelled Greek fire from here." She studied Ilara. "You the fledgling who guards him now?" "Ilara Winslow," she replied, accepting firm handshake. Dust streaked May's cheeks, but gaze shone kind. "You're the ranch foreman?" "Breeder, blacksmith, quartermaster, conscience." May hooked thumb at Mercer. "He collected." "Me same way he collects strays. Found me crawling from a Comanchero skirmish 15 years back. Been paying debt with lectures since." Mercer coughed, eyes wry. "May's the reason herd profits outweigh bullets. They moved to corral where riders already unloaded wire." Ilara surveyed acreage, natural rises, dry stream gullies, windmill tower, a patchwork of choke points and sight lines. She turned to Mercer. "If Grant can't take town, he'll carve heart out of ranch. Starve Valley, exactly." He unrolled blueprint, a hand-drawn contour map. "We string barbed wire here and here." He tapped gullies. "Dig foxholes on eastern slope," and he pointed north fence. May's surprise. May grinned, whistling shrill. 2 ranch hands swung barn doors wide, revealing a squat iron contraption on wagon wheels. An ore crusher engine repurposed with gear belts and winch arms. "Built her for hauling limestone," May said. "Now she fires hay bales soaked in naphtha, siege catapult of sorts. Range half a mile once I tweak tension." Thomas's eyes widened. "A hay flinger." "Ballista," May corrected. "Name's Hungry Martha." Mercer's mouth twitched. "Martha will greet any army." "Crossing Devil's Wash." Ilara traced finger along map. "Grant's smarter than frontal charges now. He'll use dynamite. We buried most of his sticks in that explosion," Mercer said. "He'll buy more. Maybe even a Gatling gun." Silence thickened. May cursed under breath. Mercer rolled map. "Then we bleed his purse before purchases." "Deliver." Plan of markets and myths. That afternoon Ilara rode with Yahtzee and Keel southwest. Skirts pressed against horses' sweat-slick flanks. Their mission, rumor. They'd visit watering holes at Desert Candle Station and Lizard's Loop. Leak tailies of a U.S. Marshal Regiment en route to Rusted Path. Railroad syndicate buying cattle at premium, and Mercer shipping gold east tomorrow. Word, like tumbleweed, would tangle Grant's spies, forcing him to scatter limited coin-chasing shadows. At Desert Candle, they found card sharks and freight haulers, nursing sarsaparilla under canvas awnings. Ilara, cloak-hood shadowing face, spun story of rail bosses anxious to hire drovers for 300-head drive. Yahtzee dramatized marshal badges flashing hotter than midday sun. By nightfall, whispers buzzed across saloons faster than horseflies on carcass, while rumors spread. Mercer, May, and ranch hands labored under moon, installing Hungry Martha, driving stakes for wire fences, doubling as tripwire for flare traps. Thomas fetched water, hammered nails, eyes glowing with new purpose. Mercer taught him knot tying. Ilara returned at midnight to find the boy snoring beside coil of rope, fingers still looped in clove hitch. She bent, draped blanket over his shoulders, and straightened to meet Mercer's tired smile. Under oil lamp, his features softened, creases from worry more visible than gun lines. "He reminds me who I was at 15, Mercer murmured. "Hungry for approval, terrified of failure. You give him both less and more," she said. He arched brow, less criticism, more trust. "It's teaching without chain." They stood close, barn smells of hay and sweat mixing with lamp soot. She brushed stray strand from his temple. He caught her wrist gently, thumb resting on pulse. Sparks humming like forge heat leapt between. Skin, but exhaustion wore edges dull. After a moment he sighed. Sleep, Ilara. Tomorrow's map uncertain. Dawn of visitors 2 mornings. Later South Road dusted with approaching wagons, 6 Conestogas under patched tarps. Mallister hailed through spyglass. Traveling gospel troop, or so the signs claimed. But their wheel tracks heavy, likely ammo crates beneath hymnal benches. Mercer rode to greet them midway, Ilara and May flanking. The lead wagon bore painted dove and olive branch, driver a lanky preacher in sun-bleached frock coat. He raised palm. Peace of the Lord be upon you, friends. May we share his word? Mercer's smile was thin. Word comes loaded today. Show me cargo, Reverend. Preacher feigned offense, but flick of his gaze betrayed. Mercer gestured. Riders circled wagons, rifles leveled. Under tarps they found Winchester rifles, crates of powder, a Gatling gun stripped for transport. Not. Suppliers, middlemen delivering to Grant. Mallister's militia arrested the convoy. The preacher, cornered, confessed. Grant promised deed to Mercer Ranch once Valley fell. But powder remained property of the Zert Hawk outfit, guns for hire. Uninterested in local feuds, they simply delivered to highest bidder. Ilara paced, brain-forging scheme. What if we become highest bidder? Mercer frowned. We can't pay silver, no. But we can barter with lies already sprouting, rumors of railroad contracts. Offer them future freight rights for safe passage to Carson in opposite direction. They sell to Grant, risk marshal. Battalion thanks to our rumor. They sell to us, they travel free. Preacher eyed her, calculating. How guarantee? Mercer produced signed note, Ridley forged railroad letterhead, and May added cattle promissory. Preacher weighed papers. Turned to men. Coins jingled in his pocket, longing for safer gamble. Finally he spat in palm, shook Mercer's hand. You're devilishly persuasive, so folks keep telling me. Gatling gun now belonged to Rusted. Path. Setting the final stage night before new moon. Scouts reported Grant 4 miles out, riding with hardened survivors and conscripts. 30 men, 2 small cannon, fresh dynamite. They marched through scrub to avoid narrow cut, led by tracker with civil. War experience Fletcher Fox Kearney, who studied town defense weeks earlier. Ilara reviewed map beside Mercer on veranda. Catapult arcs overlapped wire fields. Gatling. Mounted in hay cart, disguised near North Windmill. Flame trenches awaited beyond corral. Yet flaw remained, water tower. Dynamite placed at base could rupture tank, flood trenches, extinguish Greek fire moats. We move tank, May suggested. Too heavy. Ilara clicked tongue. Or we bait them to blow wrong tower. She sketched quick plan. Erect dummy. Tank near Oak Grove. Hide powder beneath. When Grant's sappers ignite fuse, thinking they cripple water supply. Domino triggers explosion, collapsing oak trunks onto artillery squad. Mercer's grin returned, wolfish but tired. You spin webs. Spiders survive the age of dinosaurs, she shrugged. Stormfall cloudless night swallowed stars. Only wan glow from cook fires marked defenders curled in shallow foxholes. Ilara crouched behind Gatling hand crank. May adjusting feed belt. Mercer paced earthen berm, checking men. Mallister knelt by dummy tower's powder keg. Fuse-trimmed short cricket chorus fell silent, a hush like lungs holding breath, then faint clink of bridle chain. Desert breeze. Carried the smell of sweat, kerosene, distant sage crushed under boots. Shadows oozed between greasewood. Grant's vanguard. Ilara's heartbeat sensed with Gatling's clicking primer she tested earlier. She swallowed coppery dryness. In deep, limited perspective, we see her inner monologue. Asterisk no running, play your part, protect them. Asterisk first dynamite satchel landed near dummy tower. Sappers crawled, unaware of trap. Mallister lay prone behind cedar stump clutching flint striker. Sweat dripping into beard. Grant's main force advanced low across flats, hauling cannons toward corral gap. Hungry Martha faced there, crew cranking winch arms, hay bale shells soaked in tar. Fletcher Kearney signaled halt, hand up. He sensed wire glint maybe. He knelt, studying ground. Too soon, Ilara realized. If he detected trap lines, plan folded. She glanced at Mercer. He crouched still. Suddenly Zephyr gusted, rippling barbed wire, rattling metal scrap intentionally. Hung as chimes. The faint jangle masked defender rustles, but drew Kearney's eye to wrong place west rather than east where deeper tripwires stretched. He resumed advance. Mallister's eyes flashed to Ilara. Wait. Her fingers stroked trigger. Housing. Sweat chilled across spine. One sapper struck match. Flame guttered blue, then yellow. Mallister hurled striker on fuse. Flint spark raced. He rolled behind stump, covering ears. Explosion tore oak into splinters. Shockwave flattening sappers, concussive roar rippling hush. Grant's men froze split-second long enough for May to yell, "Feed!" Ilara cranked Gatling. The weapon coughed, belched lead into startled ranks. Traces of muzzle flashes stitched desert night. Men hurled themselves flat, returning fire. In ragged arcs, bullets pinned windmill blades above Ilara's head. She ducked, cheeks peppered by wood chips. Martha flung first blazing bale over corral, arching comet tail of flame. It smashed near cannon crew, erupting fiery bloom that engulfed powder crates. Another detonation rolled. Smoke thickened, tinged by burning pitch and grass. Horses screamed. Kearney rallied shooters toward north flank, skirting wire cluster Sarathay. Reached ditch disguised as ground cover. Several plunged, stakes piercing thighs. Their cries curdled air. In the confusion, Grant charged through central lane astride black gelding. Dynamite bundle swinging from saddle, intent on true water tower. Mercer sprinted to intercept, revolvers firing. One slug ripped gelding's neckbeast, faltered, but momentum flung. Grant onto feet, still clutching fuse coil. Ilara saw Mercer and Grant converge like colliding stars. She left Gatling to May, vaulting berm, sprinting across field under whizzing lead. Her pistol barked. Bullet grazed Grant's elbow. Dynamite dropped. But Kearney tackled Mercer from blindside, knife gleaming. Grant snatched fuse again, staggering. Toward tower base, Ilara ran harder, lungs blazing. She dove, slam tackling Grant's knees. They rolled in dust. Dynamite skittered. Grant's fist hammered, her temple stars flared. She grappled, nails clawing his burned hand. He yowled, releasing fuse. Mercer and Kearney struggled nearby. Lightning of moon on knife flashed, then plunged. Mercer grunted, blade slicing coat but missing flesh. He wrenched Kearney's wrist, bones. Cracking audible, knife fell. Mercer head butted Kearney, dropping him. Grant rested free, drew pistol, aimed at Mercer's back. Ilara, half kneeling, flung herself between, arms wide. Gunshot erupted. She felt impact, but not pain. Instead, a bloom of dust a foot away. Mallister had fired from stump, bullet deflecting Grant's aim. Mercer spun, shot Grant's pistol from hand. Firelight painted scene, frozen Grant kneeling, weapon gone. Defenders rallying behind. Sudden horn blast cut air, a deep bellow from South Ridge. All eyes turned. A line of torches appeared cresting Mesa, dozens, maybe hundreds. Reinforcements? Mallister breathed, but the banner they carried bore not snake, nor olive dove, but crimson sunburst, emblem of Southern Pacific Railroad Security Corps. Ilara's blood chilled. Railroad had arrived not to save them, but to claim valley rights rumored in barroom tailies. Mercenaries marched ranks gleaming with lever actions, bayonets catching blaze. Mercer's face drained, jaw clenching. "We fed rumor too well." Grant laughed, rasping. "You forged your own chains, Mercer. Railroad buys my debts, buys your graves." Behind the security corps rolled something squat, iron and glinting, a portable Gatling carriage triple-mounted, shielded by iron plates, muzzle already spooling. Alara's heart hammered ice. Windmill vane creaked overhead like doomed orchestral chord. May yelled from gun nest, voice ripped by terror. "Alden, they've got a devil's wheel." Mercer pulled Alara upright, eyes shining lightning. "Everyone fall back to ranch house now." As defenders scrambled through smoke and wire, railroad Gatling open metal roar shredding cactus, ripping ground where they'd stood. Tracers of incandescent death-carved night, Alara stumbled side by side with Mercer toward veranda lights, bullets snapping air like angry hornets. Behind them, Hungry Martha exploded when a stray round detonated tar cache fireball casting monstrous shadows. They dove beneath porch as splinters rained. Dust-choked lungs, hands trembling. Mercer grasped her chin, searching eyes for injury. She shook head though ears rang that distant. Railroad captain bellowed through megaphone, "Cease resistance. Surrender property and vacate by dawn, or face annihilation under federal charter." Alara clenched revolver grip. Grant, half bound by Mallister, cackled where he knelt. "See, Mercer red tape strangles harder than rope." Mercer rose, silhouette. Against burning barn, eyes twin coals. "Red tape burns same as rope," but his voice carried dread he could not mask. And Alara felt it too, the weight of new adversary far colder than. Pharaoh rage, corporate might with endless coffers, and no conscience. Smoke-wreathed ranch yard, sparks drifting skyward like embers of broken hopes. Over crackle of flame sounded. Faint whimper of cattle penned nearby, sensing doom. Alara lifted gaze to horizon where first pale stripe of dawn seeped. Night's longest hour had not yet passed, yet already tomorrow loomed darker than any rumor. She gripped Mercer's hand, blood and ash streaking their joined fingers, and braced for a siege money could perpetuate long after courage ran dry. Behind bank of rifle barrels, railroad captain chambered fresh round and repeated ultimatum, voice booming, "Dawn, Mercer, your choice." Dawn crept inexorably. The world held its breath. Dawn bled over the corrugated hills like a slow-moving wound, painting Mercer Ranch in fragile gold while barrels of the railroad Gatling still glimmered with midnight malice. Smoke rose in thin columns from smoldering hay and shattered fences. Every creak of shifting timber sounded like an omen, and dust motes danced bright against the growing light only to vanish into shadow again. Alara, Winslow crouched beneath the veranda eaves, heart thrumming, eyes fixed on the advancing arc of red-sashed riflemen. Their livery, a crisp maroon waist sash and brass epaulettes, looked almost regal against the mud-spattered boots and stubble. 200 strong, with discipline drilled by corporate pay, they formed a crescent just beyond effective pistol range. Behind them, Grant Farrow stood shackled to a wagon wheel, yet his grin stretched wide at the sight of fresh muscle. Captain Eustace Blackwell, commander of the Southern Pacific Security Corps, removed his bowler and wiped the band of sweat, forming under the brim, as though exertion alone had placed him at this dusty ranch pre-sunup. He lifted his megaphone once more, voice ringing, "Last notice, Mercer. Surrender property and vacate. All titles revert to the railroad under eminent domain. Compliance spares lives and offers relocation vouchers." Mercer, perched at the top step with Mallister, answered not with words, but by cocking the Winchester he'd confiscated from the preacher's convoy. The captain scowled and signaled. Rail gunners tilted iron shields forward, wheels chucked. The 6-barrel Gatling clicked as belts were fed. May, hidden behind Martha's twisted wreckage, tugged on Alara's sleeve. "Once they spool that devil, we have less than 10 seconds per sweep," she whispered. "If we don't blind the gun, everything falls." Alara's mind sprinted through options. Hungry Martha lay ruined, their own Gatling's feed block melted. In the overnight fire, Greek fire jars were spent. Yet one asset remained, the water tower Grant had failed to destroy. A full 10,000-gallon head of pressure perched behind thin redwood and pitch. A single breach would flood the foreyard. turning loose soil into sucking clay, enough to bog the Gatling's wheels and tilt its barrel sideways. "May," Ilara said, breath-catching, "if we punch the west side stanchions, the water will come down like a river." May's brow furrowed. Then her steel-gray eyes lit. "Flood the monster." Mercer hurried over as they outlined the scheme. His gaze followed the uphill gradient from tower to Gatling carriage. He nodded once. "Mallister, prepare dynamite. We'll blow 2 legs." Mallister scrunched bushy brows. "You trust dynamite 2 paces from our only drink?" "No," Ilara said. "I'll climb and use the old foundry fuse." "Controlled burn." Mercer's jaw flexed. "Too dangerous." "We don't have time." Her fingers brushed the scar on her cheek. "Truth is hotter than rumor, remember? Let me burn it." A flicker of pride softened his concern. He squeezed her shoulder. "Take Thomas. He knows the ladder rungs." Thomas paled but squared his narrow shoulders. "Yes, sir." While Mallister lobbed stalling shots to keep railroad heads down, Ilara and Thomas sprinted across yard behind barrel cover, bolts of dust kicking at their heels. Bullets whistled overhead. One pinned a shovel blade, ringing like cracked church bell. Ilara counted steps 15, 12, 9 each, echoing the borrowed calm she forced into lungs. They slid behind tower masonry. At its foot lay coils of fuse May had salvaged. Ilara's fingers shook as she tied the wax-coated cord in a clove hitch around midpoint stanchion. Thomas scrambled up opposite ladder to perch with rifle, covering her climb. Hand over hand, she ascended the sun, warmed. Metal rungs. At 20 feet, wind buffeted loose strands of hair across her eyes. She reached the tank seam where slats overlapped. Below, Captain Blackwell barked fresh threats. The Gatling's hand crank whined. She wedged copper ignition cap into seam. Teeth gripped on fuse end. One spark, one prayer. She struck flint against iron ring nothing. Again tiny ember sizzling, caught by pitch, racing along cord downward. Down! Thomas hollered. Ilara launched herself into partial slide, boots scraping rungs. Mid-descent, a Gatling burst erupted, 6 barrels spewing. Bullets pocked the tower, clanged on braces. Wood chips flew like angry bees. She hit ground rolling. Thomas tugged her behind trough. Fuse smoked orange, disappearing behind support leg. One heartbeat stretched. Then whammed up the stanchion burst, redwood chunks tumbling. Water roared as the tank tilted, boards cracking in chain reaction. 10,000 gallons unleashed, a jade curtain smashing the yard, plowing trenches, shoving the Gatling carriage sideways. Wheels sank to axles. The iron plate yawed, muzzle carving mud. May whooped. Ranch hands opened fire from porch rail. Mercer advanced 20 paces, bullets fanning overhead, and leveled Winchester at the struggling rail crew. The story took us a long time. If you like it, subscribe. Now, back to the story. The torrent tore on. Blackwell's soldiers floundered. Uniforms drenched heavy. The Gatling's crankmen slipped, face meeting rushing water. Belts soaked, black powder ruined. Someone screamed, "Fall back!" Blackwell's face purpled. He yanked revolver, aimed at Mercer, but Grant Farrow lunged. Shoulder tackling Captain DeMuck, yelling, "He's mine!" Shackles still on wrists, Grant rested Blackwell's sidearm. 2 security men intervened. Chaos crumpled chain of command. Mercer sighted Grant, but hesitated. He could drop Farrow, but the momentary infighting bought critical seconds. "Everyone inside!" he roared. "Secure house." Ilara hauled Thomas through waist-deep water that slowed railway ranks but not bullets. Shots cracked, one splintered veranda post above her head. May ushered them through doorway, slamming oak plank. Inside, narrow hall buzzed with terrified cattle dogs and the smell of axle grease. Mercer slid heavy armoire across threshold. Mallister shoved shelving against windows. May retrieved scattergun from mantel. Adrenaline fog mingled with dust shaken. From rafters, outside, Blackwell's whistle pierced confusion. Remaining soldiers regrouped beyond floodplain. Their boots sucked free of mud with each retreat step. Pride replaced by cold rage. Blackwell shouted, "Load the parrot guns." Mallister. "Cursed, they'll shell us." "Let them," Mercer said, voice low. "We hold until ridgeline allies arrive." Before dawn he'd sent Yahtzee riding north for Willow Bend and Fort Garrison. If the Navajo reached the fort by midday, cavalry element might cut the rail line from behind, but midday felt a century. Away, Blackwell's crews manhandled 2 3-pounder field guns onto drier ground. Artillery muzzles yawed toward farmhouse facade. Mercer counted heartbeats. 1, 2. Boom! A shell slammed into front porch, rippled walls. Plaster snowed from ceiling. Window panes burst. The concussion rattled Ilara's molars. Thomas cowered. Under table clutching ears. Second shell punched corner beam. Roof joist sagged. Smoke rolled through hall like angry dragon breath. May barked orders for fire buckets. Ilara's vision blurred. She fought panic. House wouldn't last a third hit. She grabbed Mercer's arm. "Cellar," he nodded. Mallister. Herded defenders through kitchen trapdoor into the earth-cooled room where potato bins and aging cheese now host resistance fighters. May passed out ammo tins. Candles flickered, carving cavern into orange pockets of hope. Above them, boots. Thudded rail troops breaching porch. Blackwell's clipped baritone echoed, clear rooms. "Take prisoners." Mercer crouched near trapdoor hinge. "Wait till half enter, then spring." Ilara knelt beside Thomas, pressing extra rounds into his shaking hands. "Breathe," she whispered. "Count to 3 after Mercer fires, then follow." Thomas swallowed hard, nodded. Floorboards groaned overhead. Dust filtered down like hourglass sand. The first soldier lifted kitchen latch. Trapdoor shuddered, but the latch hook held. Another voice. "Basement access." Knife scraped wood, attempting to pry. Mercer exhaled. Shoulders coiling. He flung trapdoor up, cracked hinge pins flying. His revolver barked thrice. Soldier at ladder toppled backward, rifle discharged into ceiling. Ilara surged up second, levering shotgun into chest of next assailant. Blast thundered. Inside cramped pantry, deafening. Thomas climbed, firing Henry lever gun, bullets driving surviving intruders toward parlor. Mallister followed, pistol flashing. Blackwell retreated to yard, rallying. Grant Farrow broke from his captors, still armed, bolting east toward unflooded pasture where horses grazed. Mercer spotted him through shattered window. He hesitated, secure. House or stop Grant? Duty warred with vengeance. Ilara saw pause. "Go," she said. "We'll hold." His eyes locked with hers, a vow unspoken. He vaulted through window frame into mud, sprinting after Farrow. Grant reached picket post, cut mount free with chain still clamped to one wrist. He swung up awkwardly, spurring toward Cedar Break. Mercer pursued on foot until May whistled from barn ruins and slid a saddled roan out the breach. He vaulted astride, thundering after Grant. They raced over rain-wet flats, hooves crowning fountains of mud. Security men dared not follow, busy reorganizing. Beyond, streamed cuts snake-like through Chaparral narrow stone gorge, leading toward Devil's Wash. Grant glanced back, fury painting scars bright. He drew stolen revolver, fired blind. Shot shrieked past Mercer's stirrup, dust puffed. Within gorge walls, echoes, amplified thunder. Grant veered down ravine, hooves clattering slate. Mercer entered split seconds later. Here, footing treacherous water trickled from last night's flood. Twilight of overhang cooled sweat on his brow. He spotted Grant's gelding scrambling. Up small rise toward an abandoned mining shack perched above wash. Grant dismounted, stumbling through warped door. Mercer reined his roan, dismounted silent. Revolver raised, he advanced. Inside shack smelled of rot and rust. Beams collapsed like drunk teeth. Sun shafts sliced dusty gloom. Chain dangling from Grant's wrist scraped floor. Mercer stepped. Through portal. End of tracks, Grant. A hollow chuckle. Grant emerged behind forge table, dynamite bundle clutched. End for both. He raised patched pocket watch wired to cap. Thumb hovered over winder like trigger. You killed my kin, ruined my name. Now we burn together. Mercer's aim never wavered. Your kin died behind your guns, your name you defiled it. Grant's face twisted grief and hate. No sermon saves you. He turned watch stem. Mercer fired not at Grant, but at chain on his wrist. Bullet split iron, jerking Grant's arm. Watch fumbled, clattering into murky puddle. Fuse burned not. Grant roared, lunged with knife. They collided, grappling amid broken boards. Knife scraped Mercer's ribs, shallow. Mercer hammered elbow into Grant's temple. Blade fell. Grant tackled him against wall. Boards shattered outward. The two crashed through, tumbling down wash slope. They hit mud hard, separated. Grant rose first, face streaming blood, fists up. Mercer staggered, ribs aflame. Unarmed now they circled, feral. Grant charged, swinging heavy. Mercer slipped left, drove fist to kidney, another to jaw. Grant grabbed collar, head butted. Stars burst white. Mercer kneed thigh, pried loose. Grant spat red. You think yourself righteous, but you're just another gun. Maybe, Mercer rasped, but this gun defends, not sells. He feinted, landed cross punch, sending Grant reeling onto knee. Sirens of memory screamed. Sarah Deadwood. Promises. Mercer lifted fist to finish, then froze. He saw Grant's eyes not murderous now, but hollow with decades of greed, emptying. Out, he lowered arm. I'm done killing for ghosts. Grant's lip curved weak. Should've. He yanked hidden derringer from boot, aim rising. Mercer tensed too close to dodge when a rifle crack split air. Grant jerked, eyes wide. Blood blossoming chest. He sagged. Mercer turned. Ilara stood at gorge mouth, rifle smoking, Thomas behind covering. She whispered, wind stealing word. No running. Grant slumped lifeless. Mercer closed eyes, breath ragged. When he opened them, Ilara was there. Hand on his cheek. I had to, she murmured. He nodded, tears salt with mud. I know. They returned to ranch leading mounts, bearing Grant's body laid over saddle. Security corps, leaderless after Blackwell fell wounded under Mallister's last volley, pulled out at dusk, dragging cannons but leaving dead. Word arrived Yahtzee reached fort. Cavalry planned investigation of corporate aggression. Rusted path. Might earn official protection, yet cost lay heavy. Charred fields, shattered beams, buried friends. Night settled quiet but restless. Under veranda lantern, Mercer read letter found in Blackwell's case. Contract signed by Southern Pacific and State Railway Commission, claiming all valley water rights contingent on voluntary vacate by settlers. Without Grant's debt deeds, the claim lost legal anchor. Evidence and witness affidavits would go east. But railroad would not quit lightly. Mallister folded arms. We can testify, but shareholders hire longer shadows. Mercer closed eyes. Then we shine brighter lamps. Ilara squeezed his hand. Tomorrow we ride to Carson with proof, voices, resolve. May chuckled wry. And hungry Martha's scraps as exhibita, Thomas yawned. Does that mean the fighting's done? Ilara tousled his hair. It means this battle's won. Work remains. The boy nodded solemn, gaze at stars returning to calm sky. But across desert horizon, distant glow sprouted locomotive headlamp carving black. Corporate reprisal on steel wheels, Mallister cursed. Mercer holstered pistol. Ilara inhaled shoulders. Squaring. Tomorrow would dawn with thunder of iron. test of law against profit. Yet tonight, the ranch still stood, hearts still beat. And rumor's smoke cleared to reveal a single truth. Courage wasn't forged by hammers alone, but tempered in waters of shared conviction. Locomotive whistle pierced night lonely, foreboding. The valley woke to its echo, bracing for the next reckoning hurtling down the rails. Steam shrieked across the valley like a wounded hawk, echoing off red mesa walls and rattling every half-shattered window and rusted path. Ilara, Winslow stood on the station platform's splintered planks and watched the iron leviathan crawl. From dawn's lavender haze, a Baldwin Mogul locomotive, boiler gleaming black, headlamp blazing white judgment. 2 flat cars rattled behind, bristling with uniformed guards. A third carried stacked crates stenciled SPC property, handle. With care. Mercer breathed beside her, shoulders squared. Dawn painted pale strips across his weather-torn coat, each scar and patch telling night stories. High above, telegraph wire hummed with residual static where Mallister had sent pleas to the territorial governor hours earlier, but governments moved slower than trains as the engine hissed to a halt. Captain Blackwell, arm bound in sling from rifle wound, stepped down, flanked by fresh security officers. Behind him came a stout man in linen suit, beard impeccably trimmed, Horace P. Leland, Southern Pacific Regional Director. His eyes swept the battered town like an appraiser surveying fire sale property. Leland adjusted gold-rimmed spectacles. "Mr. Mercer, Miss Winslow, Marshal Mallister, your resilience is inconvenient. Your siege violates territorial law," Mallister rasped, voice hoarse from powder smoke. He held leather folder of affidavits assembled overnight. "We have witness statements, corporate bribery documentation, and a body count." Blackwell scoffed. Leland smiled thin. "The law, Marshal, is a matter of paper. And our paper," he waved sealed envelope, "reclassifies this valley under federal rail expansion. Eminent domain effective immediately. Residents will be compensated. Resistance will be prosecuted." A murmur rippled among townsfolk gathered behind barricades. Mothers gripped children. Ridge ranchers muttered curses. Doc Green clenched jaw until whiskers quivered. Mercer stepped forward. "Compensation doesn't replace heritage. You burn our homes, claim our water. That isn't progress, that's plunder." Leland sighed. "Romanticism has no seat at the board table. Grant Farrow's estate transfers mineral rights to us, signed yesterday before his unfortunate demise." He produced deed with fresh ink. Ilara's stomach lurched. Grant had sold Valley from beyond grave. Mercer's hand trembled. Near holster, but he steadied. Those rights were leveraged on stolen debts. Court will nullify. Leland signaled porters. Crates were pried open, revealing portable telegraph, field desks, and most chilling cages containing stacks of iron shackles. By the time a judge reviews, the rail will be laid. We've brought convict laborers. On next train. They will build, guard corps will secure, and settlers will vacate. Ilara felt heat flood cheeks. That's slavery rebadged. Leland's gaze flicked over her bruises. "Call it what you wish. Commerce requires resolve." Blackwell barked order. Guards raised rifles, covering Main Street. Leland produced pocket watch. "You have until sunset to accept vouchers. After that, our men escort anyone left to the county line." He and Blackwell turned, boarding caboose repurposed as command car. Steam hissed. Locomotive idled like a beast content to wait. Tension cracked once they left earshot. Mrs. Finch whispered prayers. Ridley's fists clenched white. May spat. Into dust, Mercer, Mallister, and Ilara huddled on depot steps. Mallister rubbed temples. "We can't match federal charter head-on." Ilara's mind clutched memories of the foundry, how owners ignored safety to protect profit until molten slag burst and lives shattered. History threatened repeat on grander stage. She breathed slowly, forcing thoughts into order. Paper got us into this, she said. Paper can get us out if we control ink. Mercer's brow furrowed. She explained. Territorial governor election 2 months away. Leland's expansion hinges on unratified charter amendments. If they expose convict slavery, fraud deeds, public outcry could freeze Bond's financing route. But they needed evidence broadcast faster than Leland could bury it. Telegraph, Mercer realized. Their portable rig, Ilara nodded. We take it, send statements to Denver papers, governor's office, military fort. Once story transmits, they can't cut every wire, Mallister half smiled. Sabotage by journalism. May's grin showed wolfish teeth. Add dynamite to ink, I'm in. Plan crystallized. At dusk while voucher lines formed. Select team infiltrates rail command car, hijacks telegraph, broadcasts evidence. Simultaneously, cowhands downline sever track ahead and behind locomotive, stranding cores. With rail cut. And scandal telegrams sent. Cavalry from Fort Providence alerted earlier by Yahtzee could arrive to enforce investigation. Mercer chose infiltrators. Ilara for typing speed and witness. May for tools, Yahtzee for stealth, Caleb for distraction. Mercer and Mallister would stage negotiation to cover approach. Sun crawled toward right horizon. Rail guards herded settlers into line at makeshift booth where clerks stamped vouchers. $50 a family. One-way coach fare. Many refused, spitting at feet. Others accepted blank-eyed, hope beaten. Captain Blackwell strutted. Slynn discarded to brandish new Colt. Mercer and Mallister approached with white flag. Blackwell smirked, letting them pass to Leland's desk. Inside caboose. Ilara, May, and Yahtzee slipped behind water barrels, crawling beneath flat car couplings. Caleb, above, balanced on water tower with lasso ready. Inside caboose. Leland sat by mahogany table, ledger open. Change of heart? He greeted. Mallister dropped folder onto table. Counteroffer, you withdraw, we telegraph governor. Cooperation, he fast tracks your charter. Leland's eyes narrowed. Terms? 51% of water rights remain in settlers' trust, Mercer said. Rail gets right of way and 10-year tax abatement. Leland tapped fingers, calculating. Interesting. Outside, Ilara slid through open baggage bay. Heart hammering. Telegraph set flashed amber from oil lamp. She seated at key, May guarding door with monkey wrench. Yahtzee leapt silently to roof, cutting lantern wires so car darkened save lamp glow. Ilara's fingers flew. Asterisk, asterisk, urgent stop rusted path under siege by Southern Pacific Security. Stop convict labor slavery scandal. Stop documents and witnesses prepared. Stop request military intervention. Stop asterisk, asterisk. She appended affidavit summary. Names, casualty counts, even Grant's death details. As May fed pages, Ilara tapped code lightning fast. Sweating. Back in caboose office, Mercer saw lamp flicker overhead signal silent success. He pressed harder. Sign water split, or we walk. Leland leaned back. Why would I concede when Sunsec yields unconditional control? Mercer's jaw tightened. Mallister glanced at watch stalling. Caleb gave cue from tower 2 clockwise spins of lasso silhouetted. Telegraph done. Mercer exhaled. Because you're an astute investor, he said, and astute investors hedge risk. Fort Providence cavalry rides tonight. If they find convict cages and slavery contracts, you forfeit more than Valley. Leland's smile twitched. You bluff. Telegraph key clacked in baggage bay. One guard frowned, moving to investigate. May knocked him cold with wrench, dragging body behind crates. Alarm not raised, but time dwindled. Leland heard faint thud. Suspicion sharpened. He stood, eyes darting. What are you? Explosion boomed downline south, Yahtzee's team detonating culvert. Caboose rattled, Blackwell burst in, track blown. Also north segment cut. Mercer drew pistol, trained. On Leland, Mallister leveled shotgun at Blackwell. Outside, guards scrambled. Leland's face drained. "You fools, you'll answer to federal courts." "Perhaps," Mercer said, "but by dawn the world knows your crimes." Blackwell snarled, reaching. Mallister fired warning into ceiling. Plaster snowed. Ilara and May emerged brandishing affidavits. Yahtzee followed, twin knives hurting second guard inside. Hilltop bugle pierced night cavalry note echoing across flats. Dust plume rose North Fort riders advancing, pennants snapping. Blackwell cursed. Leland sagged into chair. "We can negotiate still." Mercer lowered gun slightly. "Start by releasing property claims." Leland scribbled trembling signature voiding charter, reassigning water rights. Doc Green, summoned, witnessed. When pen lifted, distant thunder of hoofbeats rumbled. Railroad dream derailed. Moon hung silver by the time Cavalry Major Hart dismounted. He read telegram transcripts, inspected convict cages, arrested Blackwell. Leland handed over quietly. Corporation would litigate later, but immediate threat. Ended. Townsfolk gathered lanterns around station as Major addressed them. Federal inquiry. Security garrison until hearing. Cheers rose, some wept. Children chased sparks from bonfire built of voucher forms. Ilara stood apart, exhaustion cooling adrenaline. Mercer approached, eyes soft. "Your words saved Valley." She shook head. Everyone's courage did. He took her hand, then share its reward. He led her behind depot where dawn's first blush edged east. "I once promised myself no more wars. But a war for home is different." She squeezed his fingers. "A war we choose how to end." He met her gaze, pine bark eyes reflecting sunrise. He leaned, brushing dust-matted forehead to hers. Kiss soft, hesitant. She closed eyes, letting silence of morning fill spaces fear once held. Behind them, rooster crowed from burnt barn beam. May shouted orders to rebuild. Mallister laughed for first time in months. Future still uncertain, corporate lawyers, territorial politics, but hope rose like sun. Unstoppable. For the valley forgotten by maps and claimed by legends, a new chapter began, written not by guns, but by the ink Ilara splashed across wires, by the iron lines Mercer defended, and by every voice choosing to stay rooted where trouble once rode the wind. But as light bled higher, Ilara noticed telegraph key still. Blinking incoming message. She stepped inside baggage car, read operator tape. It was from Denver Press. Story front page stop, need interview, stop sending correspondent, tomorrow stop. Relief flooded. Another slip followed, clip to first. From unknown source. **** Pharaoh family not finished, stop brother Ezra hunting bounty. Stop arrives with Pinkerton team, soon stop ****. Ilara's breath caught. She looked toward horizon where long road shimmered. Trouble rode in cycles, legends faded slower than scars. She folded telegram, slid into pocket, and walked back toward Mercer toward day's next decisions. Night crept over the valley like a velvet verdict, wrapping the battered town and scorched ranch in uneasy hush. Yet inside the boarding house kitchen a single lamp burned past midnight where Ilara Winslow sorted telegram replies spread across oilcloth. Each strip of tape bore the weight of distant allies. Denver Gazette confirmed expose front page. Territorial Governor's Secretary promised immediate inquiry. Fort Providence Cavalry remained stationed pending audit. Good news thin. Fragile yet none silenced the final telegram wedged under her teacup. ****EZR a Pharaoh arrives. With Pinkerton team soon stop ****. Ezra, the eldest Pharaoh. Spectre of bygone cattle wars, rumored marksman who never missed twice. If Grant was a rattler, Ezra was the desert itself, patient, unforgiving. And he was coming here. Mercer entered, boots silent on worn planks. Soot smudged his cheek from barn repairs. He studied the telegram under Ilara's cup. Shadow crossed. Pine bark eyes. Weary of pharaoh ghosts yet? He asked, voice a rasp soft with fatigue. She slipped the tape into journal. Ghosts fade when named. We'll meet this one in daylight. He poured 2 coffees, rough hands brushing hers as he passed mug. Train for Carson leaves tomorrow evening. We ride it with affidavits. Ezra arrives before that. Alara sipped bitter brew. Let's make his visit short. Sunrise painted ridgeline coral when the lookout bell on water tower platform clanged 2 rapid strikes. One long. Riders approaching West Road. Mercer's plan snapped into motion. Mallister shifted townsfolk into alleys, rifles at ready. May aligned Hungry Martha's rebuilt winch, though only 2 tar bale shells remained. Doc Green set triage under shade. Alara led Thomas and 3 ranchers to boarded storefront over Main, vantage of entire street. Dust plume curled toward town, revealing 7 figures, 5 Pinkertons in bowler hats and city coats, rifles slung. Behind them, Ezra Pharaoh astride. Blood Bay stallion, duster as black as gunmetal dawn. Beside Ezra rode a slim silhouette woman's waist, corseted in crimson traveling suit, matching veil hiding face. Rumor had never mentioned her. Mercer stood alone at barricade, Spencer. Cradled easy. Ezra reined to 15 paces, tipped hat. Morning shadow. His voice surprised, cultured, almost gentle. Grant's ledger says you owe me a brother. Mercer didn't flinch. Grant chose his end. Ezra glanced at a veiled woman. My sister-in-law, Celeste Pharaoh, Grant's widow. She claims wrongful murder. Pinkerton agency enforces civil redress. Celeste lifted veil porcelain face streaked by single tear track, eyes flat jade. She spoke starkly, I want his heart beating in my hand. Ilara's breath hitched behind shudder. Rage that cold shocked more than screams. Ezra continued. Challenge of blood for blood. High noon, 100 paces, turn, fire. If you decline, we torch town. Legal or not, no cavalry reaches you before ashes cool. Mercer leveled rifle. Nothing legal in forced duel. Pinkerton captain, a blonde brute, proclaimed. Agency arbitration clause 7. Mutual combat permissible if claimant agrees. We guarantee fairness. Mallister stepped out, badge glinting. My jurisdiction. Challenge denied. Ezra's smile chilled bone. Then we begin reclamation. Pinkerton's cocked rifles. Behind them, Celeste produced silver pocket watch. Opened lid. Tick echoed across silence. A Mercer lifted hand to Mallister stand down. His gaze traveled rooftops where Ilara's silhouette waited. She whispered prayer, but knew his decision. I'll meet you, he called, but not at noon. Right now outside town, no stray bullets. Ezra inclined head. Cactus Plain then. He wheeled horse. 10 minutes later, Mercer readied at Plain's edge, a dusty flat etched by wind lines, yucca skeletons like frozen lightning. He insisted Alara remain behind barricades. She refused, stood 20 paces back, rifle lowered. Pinkertons formed semicircle opposite. Celeste held watch, eyes aflame. Mallister paced 99 steps, drove stake, paced back. Sun climbed. Relentless. Mercer and Ezra faced each other at markers. Wind teased coat hems. Ezra's revolver, ivory-handled, rumored custom-balanced. Mercer's Colt well-worn. They nodded. Celeste snapped watch shut signal. The two whipped about. Arms blur. Shots thundered simultaneous. Ezra staggered, bullet furrow cheek. Mercer's hat brim sliced by Ezra's round. Dust gust. Both cocked fired again. Mercer's slug drilled Ezra's shoulder, twisting him. Ezra's return wild, missed. Pinkerton's tensed, but Celeste shrieked, no. Ezra steadied, blood-soaking sleeve. He laughed low. Still quick, Shadow. Let's end stories. He aimed for Mercer's heart. Ilara saw muzzle flash, saw Mercer shift half-inch. Bullet gouged ribs, blood blooming. She screamed, raised rifle. But Celeste swung Derringer toward her. Thomas, perched at next window, fired first. His bullet pierced Derringer, shattering grip, nicking Celeste's hand. She wailed. Mercer, dizzy, lifted Colt once more. Ezra's revolver misrotated, fouled by dust perhaps. Mercer's final shot punched Ezra's chest. The marksman dropped, eyes wide as sky. Dust settled. Pinkertons lowered guns. Duel over by their doctrine. Celeste crawled to Ezra, sobbing soundless. Mallister ran to Mercer. Green clothes. Wound serious but not mortal. Slug flattened against rib bone. Ilara sprinted across plain, crouched, fingers brushing his cheek. He smiled through pain. No. More pharaohs. Afternoon saw Pinkertons withdrawing, contract voided by claimant's defeat. Celeste, shackled, rode with them, gaze hollow. Town breathed easier, yet sadness fogged air. Death never left quietly. Evening train to Carson arrived under orange sky. Platform buzzed as townsfolk hugged defenders, loaded crates of documents. Mercer, arm bandaged, prepared to board with Ilara. Mallister, May, and Ridley as witnesses. Thomas tugged Ilara's skirt. "Come back?" he asked. She knelt, ruffled hair. "We'll be home soon, and safer." Train whistle blew. As it pulled away, Ilara watched ranch shrink to dusky smudge heart, heavy but hopeful. Carson City. 2 days later, courtroom crammed with reporters, rail lobbyists, settlers in work clothes. Judge Whitcomb presided, mustache bristling. Leland, free on bail, sat beside lawyers. He looked smaller off the valley and paler when Denver Gazette editor shook Mercer's hand publicly. Mallister testified first, detailing siege, convict cages. May presented tar bale fragments and photos. Ridley produced Grant's forged deeds. Ilara, trembling yet unwavering, described flames, corporate threats. Duel, her voice steady as anvils the foundry once roared. Cross-examination attempted character assault. "Miss Winslow, were you not branded a coward in Bitter Creek?" She met lawyers' eyes. "I was branded by rumor. Today I wear scars of survival and service. Ask those alive in Rusted Path because I stayed." Jury scribes nodded. Final day. Telegraph transcripts admitted. Governor's emissary announced. Emergency moratorium on railway charters pending investigation. Cheers erupted. Gavel restored order. Judge issued ruling. Pharaoh deeds void. Water rights retained by settlers. Southern Pacific fined. Security corps disbanded. Convict labor banned territory-wide. Court adjourned to thunderous applause. Outside courthouse. Press swarmed. Flash powder popped. Mercer shielded eyes. Ilara answered rapid-fire questions until voice hoarse. One reporter asked, "Miss Winslow, what's next for the courage of Rusted Path?" She glanced at Mercer. "Home." Return journey felt lighter. Chain of mountains scrolling past windows like turning pages of trouble closed. Mercer dozed, head on her shoulder. She traced calluses on his hand, thinking of tomorrows filled with mending fences, not barricades. Train hissed into Rusted Path at dusk. Platform thronged. Thomas waving banner, "Welcome Mercer and Ilara, Mrs. Finch." Hoisting pies, May brandishing shotgun in salute. Cheer rose, echo bouncing hills. That night, bonfire lit Main Street. Fiddles played. Children danced ring around undone snake banner strips sewn into quilt of triumph. Green tapped keg. Mallister toasted. "Peace earned, peace kept." Stars shimmered in approval. Mercer led Ilara to quiet alley where desert night air smelled of creosote and fresh-cut pine. "Stay," he whispered. "Not because fear's gone, but because courage is home." She brushed lips to his answers spoken in warmth. Fire crackle and laughter drifted background. Wind carried tumbleweed trails beyond ridge, but legends of desert changed course tonight. She pulled back slightly. "Before we jump back in, tell us where you're from. If this story moves you, Please subscribe. Tomorrow, I have a special story. For you, he chuckled, tipping hat to invisible audience. Streetlight caught his grin as they walked hand in hand back toward Revelry, a new chapter beginning where old wounds once bled. 2 more great stories are next. Don't miss them. Subscribe and turn on notifications.